Video game profits collapse, PC sales boom, and the next generation battle begins in Japan. These stories and many, many more on this episode of the Video Game Newsroom Time Machine.
I've been waiting a long time for a chance to say this. Stop the presses.
Requiescat in pace.
Makes them crazy, man. What is a man?
It's me, Mario.
What a mess.
Get over here!
Please save me.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Video Game Newsroom Time Machine, the show where we travel back in time to find out what was making headlines in the home computer and video game industries of yesteryear. I'm your host, Carl, and I'm joined again by everybody's favorite co-host, Alex.
Happy to be here, Carl.
Excellent. So, before we turn on the time machine and head back to November of 1994, it's time for obligatory podcast banter. What have you been up to?
Oh, I don't know. Just hanging out, Carl. Just hanging out, keeping my own podcast going, trying not to go crazy at work. The usual.
And speaking of which, you did just recently release what I consider the best episode of your show that you have ever done. Because it was almost 2 hours of nothing but corporate shenanigans, political manipulation of markets, and no, dude, it was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely freaking gorgeous.
I appreciate that. For those that are around just for the video games, it is a very video game light episode tracing the history of CGE/Vivendi. But if you are in it for the corporate shenanigans, oh my goodness, there were many.
Yeah, dude. So much fun knowledge about how the French economy and French governmental policy toward economics in the post-war half a century or more after the war worked was just brilliant. It was amazing insight, actually made so much stuff make sense that I've observed over the years, and it's the kind of background that I think we need to understand any kind of economic activity, but especially something as weird and wonderful as the video game industry.
Yeah, well, and you know, that's kind of why I did it. I mean, that's why I did the research and then reported on it, because we've talked about this some in past episodes of this show when we were talking about telecom deregulation in Europe. I have long been asking myself, why did like 75% of the US computer game industry suddenly come to be owned by the French in the late 1990s? It didn't last long, but it happened. The four French companies came in and bought up everything. Vivendi, Titus, Ubisoft, and Infogrames. Those four companies came in and just bought up everything. And it's like, how does that happen? And you gave me kind of the rabbit hole to start going down when you were doing the stuff for this show on telecom deregulation. And then from there, you know, I started digging even deeper into like what is going on in France that suddenly all of these companies can do these, have such valuable stock that they can do these stock swaps to swallow companies, and in most cases many times their size. I mean, Vivendi was already a big company, but those other companies were canaries swallowing the cats, and it's like, what's going on here? And so I wanted to answer that question for myself, and I suppose for my listeners, and now I've at least answered some of it, I think.
You did an amazing job of it. It really put a lot of it into perspective. And, well, it's also connects a little bit with some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today, because the circumstances, as sort of the throttling back of all of the economic activity in the 60s, 70s, 80s in France that then gets unleashed suddenly.
Right.
puts them on a different level than all the other countries around them that had been doing things a little bit less in a less controlled environment. So suddenly they didn't have that sudden cash burst or valuation burst, really.
Yeah,
To
valuation burst more
make
than
a
cash.
difference.
Yeah.
It's a valuation burst, yeah.
Yeah.
And the UK, right around the time, and we're going to talk about that a lot in today's episode. It's going
Mhm.
to come up in a couple of stories. The UK has this problem that basically there's no more capital to go into the stock
Right.
market. The
Right.
video game companies that are there are already mature enough that there's really no place left for them to go.
Exactly.
And that's why they're all going to get bought up. I mean,
Yeah, they're all going to get
Yeah.
flattened.
Yeah.
In this time period, either getting bought up or fading away. With just a couple of exceptions, obviously.
yeah. But oh well. So everybody, if you haven't been listening to They Create Worlds, around the time this comes out, you may have already had another episode come out, but it's part of it's a 3-part series altogether, right?
Yeah,
On
it's
the
talking about.
CC?
Yeah, so it's the entity that gets passed around by a lot of companies, which is CUC Software / Sinden Software / Havas Interactive / Vivendi Interactive / Vivendi Universal Games / Activision Blizzard. It's this bundle. So we're not really talking about the video game history of the member companies of this, like Sierra, Davidson, Blizzard, Universal Interactive Studios, etc. But it's kind of answering the question: why were these big media companies suddenly tossing around these video game companies, kind of between them, kind of looking at it at that bigger picture level.
Gotcha. Yeah. And like I said, it's the kind of stuff that just tickled my fancy. It was just, yeah, it made my commute to work very, very pleasant.
Delightful.
So, yes. Okay. With that being said, a quick little preview for everybody. First weekend of October is Play Expo in Blackpool, England, and I will be there.
Very nice.
So just letting everybody know, if you are going to be there or looking for something to do in October, I would be happy to go a couple of rounds on Street Fighter or whatever else while I'm there. Peter is also going to be there, the OG, everybody's favorite.
Everybody's favorite original co-host.
Exactly. And so it should be a good time. And I'll be walking around probably with a Video Game Newsroom Time Machine t-shirt because gotta pimp the brand. So, yeah, that is there thanks to Ryanair's very, very cheap flights from Berlin to Manchester.
Ryanair. I remember taking great advantage of that when my family lived in Europe.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be my first time, although I very quickly discovered extra 50% on top of the fee if you want an actual bag. But okay, minor technicality. Still very cheap. Yes. Okay, we have a lot of show to cover today. So, just a quick pimping. Everybody, if you're listening to or watching this on YouTube, please, please, please subscribe, give it a like, drop a comment, tell a friend. Friends are nice. People want to know about the show. And also, if you aren't checking out the interview episodes, go check out those and vice versa. Also remember, we also have a Patreon. For $1, you can jump on there. There's no real benefit, but, it would be nice. And also, we have a Discord channel. We're not super active there. I'm trying to improve that, but look us up on Discord. All the links are in the show notes below. And now, again, before we turn on the time machine, we must go to our first segment, which is the 7 Minutes in Heaven, the segment where our intrepid co-host must play a game that was reviewed in a publication dated November of 1994 that they have never played before. We had some interesting games this month: Doom 2, Star Crusader, FIFA Soccer gets PC and Amiga ports. Yeah, one button joystick. Not great for FIFA Soccer. The Chaos Engine gets ported to the PC. Battle Bugs. There's a classic for you. Rough and Tumble, Delta 5, Guardian, one of the last great Amiga games, Lion King, Virtual Bart. We get 8 Alien vs. Predator on the Jaguar. Its greatest moment. We'll talk more about that later. Road Rash comes out, gets reviewed for the 3DO. But you, sir, you decided to go with a game that I was quite amazed you had never played before as a PC kid.
Yeah.
Jazz Jackrabbit.
Yes, indeed. Never played it. The game that put Fortnite on the map, in a manner of speaking.
How and so yeah, I mean, really, it's kind of there's lineage right there. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Welcome back, Alex, from your 7 Minutes in Heaven. So, for the uninitiated, how would you describe Jazz Jackrabbit based on your 7 minutes with the game?
Well, Carl, it's if you were to combine Sonic the Hedgehog, Rambo, and Bucky O'Hare. Quite frankly. I mean, it's a Sonic game, but it's a Sonic-style game with platform shooter elements mixed in, and a green bunny rabbit with a red bandana.
Excellent. That actually does kind of just describe the whole thing. Now, this obviously not going to break any major ground as far as gameplay or design is concerned, but this is running on a PC in 1994. So how does it do as far as the speed and the technical achievement is concerned?
No, it felt pretty good. I mean, I was running it in browser through a DOSBox simulator, so obviously there's some layers there that would have made my experience perhaps a little inauthentic from the original, but I found it ran, even with all of that, I found it ran smoothly enough. It was well animated. It had a bop and tune going in the background. So, from that perspective, it feels really good. As we talked about in the video portion, like, I feel like Sonic games do Sonic games better and platform shooters do platform shooters better. So it's like it's mixing two things together and does neither of them as well as the pure art form, so to speak, which is maybe a little disappointing, but it's technically very proficient. I mean, it's not a bad game. I'm not like laughing at it or anything. It's just, it might have been nice if those things had been combined a little better than they were, but I also understand that in 1994 on a PC, this was light years ahead of similar games of this type, kind of platforming games or platform shooter games. So, I also acknowledge that as well.
Excellent. So, would you recommend this game to a modern gamer?
I think I would. I would definitely work out a control scheme that's better than the original. Using space and alt as your primary controls for fire and jump, and arrows for movement. It feels so alien in the modern era. I mean, it's really not that far removed on what you were doing in Doom if you were not using a mouse. So, like, within the context of the time, it made sense. But going back and trying to do that as a modern gamer who's used to my game pads, even on PC, that was a little rough. So I'd probably fiddle with the controls some, but I still think it's a cute little time waster, and it's got exploration elements. It's kind of a collectathon, which was nice and well animated, and yeah, not bad.
Excellent. Well then, everybody, you heard it here first. 30 years late. So go out and play some Jazz Jackrabbit. Okay. With that being said, let's move to our, and remember everybody, you can see our video version of this. So our Let's Play of the 7 minutes on our YouTube channel. So just check the links in the show notes below. Now, on to our next segment, where we find out what we got wrong in our November 1984 episode in a little segment we call the Department of Corrections.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
the Department of Corrections.
This call is subject to recording and monitoring. To accept charges, press 1. You may start the conversation now.
Welcome back, Ethan. So,
No, Carl. You are welcome here in room 101, for it is 1984, and you have been captured by the forces of the government, and you are here to endure tortures beyond imagining. In fact, we are going to make you play non-European games with a joystick more than one button.
No. This is black magic of which you speak. There is no one who can deal with more than one button.
Well, Carl,
this is lazy game design. If you can't make the game work with one button, maybe the space bar to jump. We all know how Grisor worked.
Well, I'm glad the torture is starting to seep in already.
True.
Thankfully, I don't know that. It is not knowledge I ever want to know.
Hey, there were people who used to put their Commodore 64s under the table so they could jump with their toe.
And Alex is our chief torturer for tonight. We are here in November 1984, and we are here to describe the things which happened in October 1984.
We did a whole episode talking about November 84, you mean, not October.
Yeah. Yes. Whatever the case, everything is shuffled up in timeline, but at least we're ending the end of this ongoing story, which I know everybody has been waiting to see who Big Brother truly is.
It's Phyllis Dillard, isn't it?
I believe the real Big Brother is the corrections we made along the way.
Department of Corrections from room 101. Carl, are you prepared?
Yes. As prepared as I'm going to be.
All right. Now, first I must start. This has nothing to do with corrections as such, but it must be said, for you were speaking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I must just say, Book 4, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, is one of the worst books I've ever read. And the very fact that Jimmy Mayer considers it his favorite of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is an absolute travesty, and I'm calling him out right now.
I will join you in that call out. It is by far my least favorite Hitchhiker's book as well. Wonko the Saint's kind of funny, but that's like 2 seconds of an overly long book.
Yes, a book that literally has a disclaimer in it that you should stop reading. Like, that's the kind of book that this is.
Wait, is that the one where he's on the desert planet and invents sandwiches?
No, he is not the sandwich maker. This is the one with Finchurch.
It's the romance one.
It's been too long. I haven't read that since high school, so yeah, it's all a blur at this point. I'll have to go back and reread it.
So that's what I have in lieu of the Alex comment. But Carl is being strapped down. We're widening his eyes and ready to inject him with images such that he cannot look away. Be prepared. So firstly, you were speaking a bit about the First World's Fair in relation to somebody you were attempting to interview. The First World's Fair, the original Grand Exposition, was actually in 1853. I think you had misidentified when exactly it took place. Now on to November 1974, the publication Creative Computing. You said it was around for decades, Alex, but in fact, it was only around for a single decade. I believe it stopped publishing in 1985.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
David All, he moved on to other things and such, but the pioneering work was isolated to the 70s and 80s.
Fair call out. I was probably thinking of Dr. Dobbs, which did last for decades before finally going away. So that's a fair call.
Now, November 1984. So this is something that comes up again and again. You were saying this inconsistently across the episode, but it is, according to the people who worked at Nintendo, the VS system, not the Versus system, and not Versus system, like VS as that. No, it's the VS system.
They should have added periods then between the letters. Just saying.
Well, I think they're inconsistent about that too, but I know Kate Willert really hates the fact that that's how the acronym actually works, but that is what the Nintendo people say. Well, not an acronym. It is not an acronym. That is the problem at the core.
Yeah. Very good.
And on the VS system, I need to point out that the VS system does not use cartridges. It is a board system. The reason it was successful is not the cartridges. When the Play Choice does use cartridges, it might have been the first that used cartridges. Later on, the CPS-1 and other such systems used cartridges. But the Nintendo VS system, you got a board inside of a package that you had to go and insert yourself.
Hey, wait. That's all not true because remember, we did have that one arcade cabinet that used an Atari 8-bit computer in it. That used cartridges.
The Maxaflex, yes. True. True.
So, hey.
That was
the most technical
first
sense,
cartridge
true.
one, yes.
And the Sente system also had basically a housing around the carts.
I can't recall. I believe I looked this up before, as I recall.
It did, yeah. Had the really nifty ones with a little handle, I think.
But that doesn't take away from the call out that, yes, the VS
That's
system was...
and you have said it many times on your podcast as well.
Yes,
Alex.
I have.
Yes.
This is the call out to you.
Thank you.
Speaking of, no speaking of, that is just me rolling into random phrases and such. But the next thing on the list, you were speaking about mind-expanding games. We were talking about Timothy O'Leary.
Yes.
Now, Carl, I'm sure you've played this game, the mind-expanding Commodore 64 classic Moondust.
Moondust.
You've never played it?
Wait, wasn't... No, wait. Completely drawing a blank. Moondust. No,
he's looking it up. But this is a game by Jaron Lanier, the man who put together the VR systems that were first commercialized under VPL.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played this game for 7 minutes.
All right, you did. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, no. Now I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, no,
I talked about
amazing.
and I talked about it a million years ago when I did a virtual reality episode.
Yes. But yeah, so if you're looking for mind-expanding games, Moondust is one of them.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to the 7 Minutes in Heaven. I can't remember who had to play this game.
I know that.
Mads, was it Peter? I can't remember. I'll have to check again. It was one of our esteemed, everyone's favorite co-hosts.
Indeed. One final note on Timothy Leary. So this isn't a correction, it's just a note. But I watched one panel once with Trip Hawkins speaking about his career, and he, as I recall, the words that came out of his mouth, he was asked about regrets in his career. He said that working with Timothy Leary was one of his major regrets in his entire career. He did not elaborate, but that appears to be something, hopefully he'll elaborate in his upcoming book.
Finish the memoir, Trip.
Yes.
Says the guy who can't talk at all about finishing books.
I want him to finish because he told me that as soon as he finishes, he'll be accepting interviews again because I asked him for one. That was the
Right.
reason he gave for not giving the interview. So
I know, and
as
he
soon
talks
as
to
that book
everybody.
is out, I am interviewing Trip. Hopefully.
Well, perhaps I'll have
my
some
short
news about book in the future. Though one other note on Leary is also that he worked on the Neuromancer game that was done by Interplay. So we don't know exactly what he did, but he's in special thanks for that.
Really?
He provided
Wow.
the drugs. That was the special thanks. He provided the LSD.
Well, for that game, yeah, okay, I can see it.
Okay, Carl. Once we're done here in room 101, you will be a new man. You will be able to face society and the world, and you will finally get to know Big Brother.
Whew. I can't wait. I mean, I've always wanted to meet Phyllis Diller. Sorry, I'm
Or
just
Jonathan
sticking with
Hurt.
that gag now. My kid is into Scooby-Doo right now, okay? That's just where my head is at. Okay.
Wait, does that
Ethan-
mean Big Brother is actually not even Phyllis Diller, but the Harlem Globetrotters?
All standing on
Look
top
at
of
that.
one another. Very big brother. Okay. Oh my God. I can't believe I just fell into that. I did not see that coming. Alex. Okay. Ethan, as always, thank you for your service.
Goodbye. Bye.
Bye. I know it's really the VS system. Deep down in my heart, I know. But I mean, there's just something much more satisfying about calling it the Versus system, even if it doesn't even make sense for the later titles in it, which aren't even all competitive. I don't know. I mean, the correction is well given. I'm not like bitter about it. It's just like you just want to call it the Versus system.
Just like CUC, you call it cuck.
Right, I'm right. I mean, I can't help it. That's just what it says.
Yeah. That's it does what it says on the package. Okay, with that being said, let's turn on the time machine and head back to November of 1994.
$4 billion a year business. Breaking computer graphics.
Information superhighway.
Welcome back to November of 1994. Alex, what's our first story?
Well, Carl, I believe we have arrived in the middle of something very serious. It's getting crazy out there. Cats and dogs may even be living together. There is mass hysteria as video game industry profits plummet.
The scale of the downturn in the 16-bit console market is beginning to reveal itself as company after company reports their quarterly earnings this month. And here, I went through so many earnings reports this month for this one. My Lexis pull this time was over 2,500 pages. So I'm just going to give a rundown. I'm just going to run through some of these just because I tried to summarize these and it just didn't feel right to overlook the size of this because this is what you've always been talking about, Alex, for years now, the crash that almost was. This moment when everybody is tired of 16-bit games. There's just nothing really exciting out there. The 32-bit systems in North America are still a year out. And Japan had already felt this crunch a little bit at the end of 93, but they could compensate with solid sales abroad. Now those solid sales abroad are also collapsing. And of course, we're not getting the real 32-bit contenders, the Saturn and the PlayStation, until right before Christmas. So
Precisely.
we're getting all these reports. These are for the quarter or half year that ends in September. And let's just go through these.
Yeah.
So Sega has reported a drop in parent company only profits for the half year ending in September of 47%, led primarily by a 25% drop in sales, primarily due to weak demand in Europe and Japan and a strong yen. Sega still predicts an upswing over last year in the second half due to the introduction of the Saturn. 60% of the company's revenue comes from overseas. So here we have to do, longtime listeners probably know this by heart at this point, but it's always worth repeating. Sega is not reporting consolidated earnings. That means that they don't report in Japan, where their stock is traded, the results for the entire world. Instead, what they're reporting, and I'm super simplifying, but what they're reporting is, hey, we've sold 10 million consoles. What they've really done is they've shipped 10 million consoles to their American subsidiary or their European subsidiary, and they're not going to find out that those haven't actually sold through, that they're just sitting in a warehouse maybe for 6, 12, 18, 24 months. And only when they finally have to report that they're not going to get paid for those because the subsidiary doesn't have the money to pay for them, are they going to be reporting those losses? And so what we're seeing here with these drops in sales is really drops in orders from Europe.
Yes.
Remember, in Japan, the Genesis is a non-issue. Their market share is so small that it really doesn't matter. But it means Europe is no longer ordering because they're already sitting on so much stock.
Yeah.
And so this is basically, it's the iceberg. There's so much ice down below, and all we're seeing is this little bit, and this little bit is already 47% drop.
Yeah, it's going to get so much worse. And they're seeing it in Europe first because Europe is entering into full-blown recession. And so there's bad stuff happening in the U.S. as well, but it's going to be a little slower to trickle up to the parent company because of the way they're doing their books.
Exactly. So, and the hope that the Saturn's going to save them, well, we'll have a lot more to talk about the Saturn later in the show.
Oh, goody.
Because that's being released at the end of November. So, yeah. Sega, big problems. And this whole idea of the strong yen, this is happening due to a whole mess of different factors. Geopolitical, primarily in nature, also partially due to leftover banking regulations from pre-World War II Japan during their buildup that still at this point in time have not been fixed yet. This is also one of the reasons why they're not forced to do consolidated earnings. And this is basically the beginning of the lost decades of the Japanese economy. It's going to get bad, and through a weird quirk of geopolitics, again, don't know if we need to do the whole thing. You just talked about this extensively on your show as well.
Yeah.
The yen should be weakening as the Japanese economy weakens, but instead it's actually getting stronger. This is
stagflation that makes the 1970s US stagflation look like nothing at all.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got Sega. Now, Nintendo reported an 18% drop in net profits for the first half of the year, from $332 million to just $272 million. Revenue dropped a full 36%, from $2.65 billion to just $1.69 billion.
And,
now,
go ahead.
No, go for it.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, this is the one that should really have people sitting up and taking notice, because regardless of who is winning market share in the United States or Europe at any given time, Nintendo has been a company that throughout their console years has known how to make a buck. They have just been growing and growing and growing. So to see Nintendo suddenly dip that much, that shows there's something really serious going on here, as far as I'm concerned, even more than some of these other companies.
Oh, definitely. I mean, they were the ones who refused to sell at hardware at a loss. They, even with the 16-bit wars going on, they had the bombastic Game Boy business to fall back on.
Yeah.
This is scary.
Yeah, and the console stuff that we talked about, and at this point, Game Boy's dying. It's easy to forget this now, but if not for Pokemon, Pokemon gave Game Boy a second lease on life. But in this period, Game Boy's been out since 1989. Everyone who wants one kind of has one, and people are losing interest there as well. So they can't rely on the handheld to bulk up with the problems that are going on across consoles. It's not a Nintendo specific problem.
That's true. That's true. And they also have a lot of R&D costs right now because getting that new hardware up and running is not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So, KOEI company lowered its sales forecast for the fiscal year ending in March by 0.5% and expects after-tax profits to dip by 3.5%. The game maker blamed consumers who are refraining from purchasing 16-bit software while waiting for newer 32-bit games. And this one I included because it's kind of an outlier by how small the change is.
Yes.
And it's because KOEI, they're the specialists for strategy games. They haven't tried to do fighting games or anything like that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they know exactly how big their market is. They're the ones who know exactly how many cartridges to order and never order more than that. So even they're feeling the pinch, even if it is literally just single digits in percentages.
And I think the other thing is that they do not have a very significant international presence. KOEI does release games in the West, but it's not like their games are the super popular games in the West. A lot of the apocalypse that's going on in this time period, even though obviously Japan at home is having its own problems with the beginning of their massive issues with their recession, depression, a lot of this is fueled by the collapse in interest in the US and European markets in 16-bit stuff. And so in that sense, they're a little more insulated because they're not relying on those markets for a lot of their sales.
Yeah. And I don't know how much, I can't remember how much we covered it when we were doing the episodes at the end of 93, but there was a lot of talk there already about how the 16-bit Japanese market had already collapsed there pretty much.
Right.
So those numbers have already been taken into account.
Right.
So yeah, that's another reason why the Japanese numbers aren't as relevant this time. NAMCO Limited of Japan announced that the first half of their fiscal year ending in August saw their profit drop by 29.1%, despite overall sales rising 14.9% and console game software sales actually rising by over 60%. NAMCO took out a lot of debt, and the drop in profits were due to debt service. They are planning to launch 3 or 4 games for the PSX in the second half of their fiscal year. And this here is kind of weird. The software sales actually rising by over 60%. I'm not sure which games they were selling that would have created that. It could have been they could be mixing software sales that are both domestic use and for arcade use here, because we are talking about Ridge Racer. And I'm not sure what else, if they had any other fighting games out already at this point. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what there was, but I think this is more the arcade is what's pulling their bacon out of the fire at this point.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry. It was console game software sales rising by over 60%.
Yeah, you're right.
They must have had some kind of hit, but I don't know what it was. But yeah, but they still had a drop in prices because they spent a lot of money financing all of that cool tech that's going to give them those big 3D successes early on in the PlayStation's life.
Right.
So Konami, here we go. Konami Company of Japan had its first loss since going public in 1984 of 2.5 million yen for the first half of the fiscal year, a massive turnaround from its 285 million yen profit the previous year. Sales fell 29.6%, with home software sales dropping 75.3%, and amusement arcade equipment falling 36%. Konami clocked 2.9 billion in losses from its U.S. distribution subsidiary, where the U.S. sales subsidiary's investment losses and inventory clearance has been great. Konami expects a loss for the year of 14.5 billion yen.
Yeah, and there it is. This is showing the U.S. apocalypse that's going on, and it is. You don't have to belabor it. It was talked about before. This was just like the crash in 82, 83. A lot of companies had gotten into the market. There were too many companies releasing too many games that were both too similar to each other and too similar to what everyone had already played in the early 16-bit era and even in the 8-bit era. The US market is horribly oversaturated, and stuff is going into clearance. It is the exact same thing that happened in 82. It's just that everyone was a little more mature and everyone was a little more well-financed, because in 82, 83, outside of like Atari and Parker Brothers, like a lot of it was very small companies that did not have a lot of capital and had no way to weather this period of time. Whereas we're talking big publicly traded Japanese companies here that aren't going to fall apart because of one bad quarter or one bad holiday season. But yeah, things are looking bad in the US, like really, really bad. And then I presume I'm not positive about this, but I presume on the arcade side, Konami was very slow getting into polygonal stuff. And this is the period of time when polygonal stuff is taking over. And I imagine they're taking a hit in coin-op as a result of not being able to transition into those kind of driving and fighting games that everyone craves. Obviously, the first Bamani game is still a few months away in 1995, which will give them a little boost there.
Yeah. And I mean, they had a 36% drop in their arcade stuff with a 75% drop in home software, but overall sales only fell 29.6%. I'm guessing that there's probably unspoken there. They're still in metal games or similar non-video game product as they traditionally had been. That might be propping them up a little bit here. Okay. Capcom saw profits for the half year ending in September plummet 82.9% from a year earlier. Sales tumbled 44.5%. Super Street Fighter II only sold 2.4 million units, although it was targeting 3.8 million. Exports fell by 30.2%. Super Street Fighter II Turbo for the 3DO will be hitting U.S. store shelves just in time for the Street Fighter movie's theatrical debut.
I mean, the number of times the word Street Fighter were uttered in just this brief blurb tells most of the Capcom tale here. I mean, it's the same macroeconomic factors that everyone is facing, but they rode Street Fighter 2 too long and too hard straight into the ground. And so they were particularly vulnerable to this sudden drop in interest in the US. I've seen other press releases talking about the video game industry in general that have, or articles that have like called out Capcom by name along with Data East, a company we're not mentioning in these reporting, as two companies that were specifically hard hit by inventory pileups in the United States. And with Capcom, they threw too much Street Fighter out there, and people didn't need any more Street Fighter 2 at this point.
Well, yeah, and it's the same Street Fighter. We're going to talk about the launch of Mortal Kombat 2 a little bit later.
Yeah.
At least that was moving the game forward. It was offering a little bit something new. I mean, 90% of Super Street Fighter 2 is the same thing you've already had if you bought Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition or any of the other variants.
Four new characters, a handful of new moves for existing characters, virtually the same.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, the 3DO is finally going to get a version, so that's good.
So they've got that going for them, which is nice.
I'm sure it's going to just sell gangbusters.
Yeah, I mean, Capcom almost goes bankrupt in this period from all we've heard. It's not the business people talking, but Mikami, when talking about the release of Resident Evil, he talks about how it almost wasn't released because the company was going bankrupt. And without Resident Evil, it's quite possible they might have. I mean, it's never that simple. There's always many competing factors, but it gets dark at Capcom in this period.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, if it's not that 32-bit leap is going to save a lot of these companies. And I'm sure that there's companies that we're not really thinking about, or a lot of companies are going to get so weak that they're going to be bought out because of these failures. But we'll cover that as we go over the next year's worth of episodes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Takara bucked the trend, though, as the Japanese toy and video game makers saw software sales jump 28.1%, while traditional toy sales dropped. They also unloaded their arcade operations, helping their numbers. They also foresee a boon from the sale of 32-bit games this holiday season.
Yeah, and again, this just shows some of that contrast again. I mean, things could be better in Japan, especially since there's a transition coming and people are holding out for the new systems. But this, along with those Koei figures, just serves to further emphasize the problem here is the Europe and US sales. It's not so much the Japanese sales that are the problem.
That is definitely true. And I think also I think a lot of it comes down to, do you currently have a hit?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's basically people are buying games, and there's more people there. And this is just sort of a wild theory, but we're going to see it reflected by some of the analyst discussions later on when we get to Donkey Kong Country. The idea that if a game is a hit, everybody wants that one game. And when you have 40, 50 games coming out every month on these on various systems, then that one or two games they're going to float to the surface, and everything else is going to die. So it all just comes down: did you have one of those one or two games during that period?
No, that's
got the hit. Yeah,
that's absolutely true, and that's also why this crash that wasn't as noticeable as the Great Crash, because once the industry started falling apart due to oversaturation, in the early 80s, it's like public acceptance of the sector just was dropping across the board. Even the games that should have been bigger hits that were coming out in 1983 weren't breaking through the noise. Whereas here, Donkey Kong Country is about to be a massive, massive success. People are still buying video games, and they're still buying hit video games in large quantities, but they're ignoring all of the clones and crap. I mean, how many animal mascot platformers do you need? The answer to that is definitely not the amount that were on the market in 1994.
That is definitely true. And for those who haven't yet listened to part 2 of my interview with Gary Bracey of Ocean fame, the factor that's going to be a big transition point here is the cost of the individual units, those cartridges that are super, super expensive and a massive outlay. And if you're stuck with them, basically it can take your company down, is going to be lifted when they move to CD. But at the same time, you go from development costs of maybe 200,000 for a game to a minimum cost of 5 million for the development of a game. And that's going to be a whole new shift in how games get financed. And if your company is not ready financially to deal with that, that's another whole thing, because it's one thing to get a bank to give you a loan to finance physical product. It's another one to get a loan to finance development of a game that may take 2 years to develop and you don't even know if it's going to be finished. Changes the dynamics a little bit.
Indeed.
But we're getting off on tangents now. THQ. So now let's come back to the States. THQ has reported a quarterly loss of $2.9 million for the quarter and expects a loss for the fourth quarter as well. This isn't surprising, as they have not released any new games in the last quarter and are instead focusing on preparing for the launch of titles for the next generation of systems and the distribution of the XBAND modem. More on that later in this episode.
Yeah. No notes.
And it's kind of a smart move. I mean, THQ is going to be smelling like roses in the next generation for quite a while, even though, I mean, not necessarily the best games in the world, but they're holding back right now, and that's probably the smartest move. And let's talk about another pillar of the industry. Software Etc. announced a quarterly loss of $989,000, down from a profit of $82,000 in the same period last year, as revenue rose 5% from $52 million for the quarter in 1993 to $54.8 million in 1994. Comparable store sales declined 12% in the third quarter, as opposed to the 12% increase the year before. The quarter ending October 29th also saw Software Etc. open 21 new stores and close 1. They are now up to 372 stores in 47 states and DC, with plans to open 14 new stores by mid-December.
And Carl, I think we have a bit of a breaking news here, as you have reported on that last one, as I am now being told Software Etc. and Babbage's to merge.
Yes, retail chains Software Etc. and Babbage's Inc. have announced a definitive merger agreement that would lead the two companies to become wholly owned subsidiaries of a new holding company. Regulatory clearances and stockholder votes were still outstanding. So, and I didn't include it here, but Babbage's also had losses. And that 12% decline in comparable store sales, that's harsh. But yeah, these two are merging because they don't give any formal reasons for it. But I think I would guesstimate to say that it's fairly obvious. It's all getting far, far more competitive. If the market is all about a couple of big hit games are the only thing that's still making a profit, the last thing you want to do is, in a specialty store that has to carry a larger volume of games than, let's say, a Walmart, last thing you want to do is also have to compete against 3 other stores in the same mall.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. And, obviously there's a lot of economic pressures going on that we've already talked about in people buying less games or fewer games. But also, like, those big retailers are coming in more and more. And those big box stores can order more inventory from publishers, and those publishers seeing dollar signs are going to more and more shift to kind of favoring those stores. So consolidation in the specialty space is somewhat necessary so that they can keep up in ordering kind of the same quantities of software as those big box retailers can, so that publishers continue to pay attention to them. I imagine, like, I don't have sources saying all of that, but it makes too much sense not to believe otherwise.
Exactly. And as someone who was frequenting these kind of stores at the time, I mean, I remember the mall in Gainesville, Florida, when I was in college down there. We had, let's see, 1, 2, 3 software specialty stores in one mall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were cannibalizing each other.
Exactly. I remember in my mall in this time period in Illinois, St. Louis suburbs, I'm pretty sure it was just the two. I don't think there was an electronic boutique. I think it was just Software Etc. and Babbage's. But I remember they were strategically positioned on like opposite wings of the mall, because they were each trying, because I don't think they wanted to be too close to each other. They were hoping that they would not cannibalize their traffic as much that way, probably. But yeah, I mean, how many do you need? Because they're selling. I think one of them catered more towards console games than the other did. Like there was a little variation, but it's basically the same kind of thing. And now Big Box is getting in. This is right around the time, I think it was a couple of years later. It might not have been until more like 96, but this is right around the time, for instance, that our Best Buy started selling video games. They had historically sold computer games, but they had not sold console games. Ours specifically, I can't speak for all Best Buys everywhere, but like Big Box is coming in.
Actually, there's a story I didn't include this month of Best Buy expanding into consoles.
There you go. Right. Yeah, I remember it happening right in this time period.
I was already at over 100 rows on the Excel spreadsheet. I was like, no, I'm not adding that. But yeah, that was this month.
There you go. I knew it was around this time from personal memory, but there you have it. So yeah, a lot of pressure out there. And that pressure is also being felt on the markets by some of the, let's say, lesser players as big money bets against Atari.
Money manager Martin D. Sass of MD Sass Investors out of New York has told USA Today that he thinks Atari stock, which was trading at $6.75 on November 4th, was going to drop to its 52-week low of $2.78 by January. Sass has shorted the stock before in April of '94, netting about $300,000, and is expecting a bigger killing this time around, as he estimates that Atari needs at least 50 titles for the Jaguar to be profitable, and it only has 7 at this time. Sass said it's basically a one-product company with no earnings visibility and nowhere to go but down.
Now, obviously, short sellers are always wanting to create market volatility because that's how they make their money, short selling. So, there's a little bit of that going on here, obviously, but also the man's not wrong. I mean, Atari's just in a death spiral at this point.
It is. And I included this because this became sort of a day by day thing of trying to do damage control and press releases and follow-up articles. And so I just thought I'd give the brief rundown of how this drama went back and forth.
Yeah.
So the very next day, Atari stock fell to 5.5. Mm-hmm. It was at 6.75. Atari responded to the USA Today article with a press release correcting some details and clarifying that more software is coming and that the newspaper was just helping Sass's short position by publishing his claims. Now, an additional analyst, Scott Ciccarelli,
Yeah, or Ciccarelli, perhaps. Could be Ciccarelli.
Yeah. Of Gerard Callur Mattinson and Co.
Clower. I think you misspelled. I think it's Gerard Clower Mattinson.
Oh, Clower. You're right. Gerard Clower Mattinson and Co. has told the Financial Post that he also sees the stock dropping to $2 to $3 a share within 6 months as more competition arrives on the market. Atari reported its quarterly earnings on November 14th. So all of that was happening November 7th and November 8th. Now we jumped to November 14th, and they showed a rise in revenue of 61% to $7.1 million over the year prior, and a decline in losses from last year's $17 million to just $3.9 million. The losses were attributed to a lack of software and increased marketing costs. But on the bright side, their premier title for 1994, Alien vs. Predator, has been purchased by 50% of Jaguar owners.
I mean, what's 50% of 10 anyway? I kid, but only slightly.
Only slightly. Yeah. You also do not want to see the review scores for AVP and Electronic Gaming Monthly. Whew, they were not kind. Although, yeah, Stephen L. Kent of Ultimate Video Game History fame actually reviews it for Electronic Games. He somehow gives a very positive, glowing review and then ends it by saying, but it's impossible to control. It's like, okay, Steven. But yeah, again, there were so many tangents I could have added this month. On November 16th, Atari announced that their deal with Sega has finally been approved by government regulators, and they would be getting the money they agreed upon. We've talked about their deal with Sega in previous episodes. They were going to get some money. Sega was going to also buy some of their stock, and Atari was going to have the right to make some games for the Jaguar using Sega licenses. And Sega, of course, was also going to have the right to release games on the Jaguar because that was going to happen. And the news led to Atari stock jumping 11% to $5.50 a share.
Yeah, I mean, this series of notes just tells the whole story. I mean, their only chance had been to somehow convince people that their system was interesting before the big boys in the next generation arrived. For a variety of reasons, they couldn't do that, but they have one asset left, which is they now have a whole lot of cash that they're getting from Sega for those patent violations. So,
yeah. And you could either blow all of that on this sinking ship that is a Jaguar, or take the money and run.
Indeed.
Yep.
So turning our attention to a segment where things are still popping off, Sillywood deals abound.
A ton of companies are getting in on the FMV multimedia bandwagon. Activision has cut a deal with Jim Henson Productions to develop multimedia CD-ROM games based on the Muppets. First game will be Muppet Treasure Island. This even though many Sillywood developers are beginning to target older audiences, with 30-year-olds becoming just as important as teenagers. Yeah, and this one, again, I could have done a laundry list of all the multimedia deals this month, and we will talk about some of those a little bit later in a different context. And then I decided to preserve my sanity and not do that. But I did want to talk about this idea here, and this is coming out of an article from the Age newspaper out of Melbourne, Australia. They had a whole bunch of really interesting tech articles this month, and this idea of targeting an older audience, the 30-plus-year-olds, especially given the massive increase in hardware requirements, the idea of more graphic violence through the FMVs and more adult content. In fact, Electronic Games magazine this month. The cover story is cyber sex, and they go in, they have like a 6-page article on all these soft porn games that are coming out and so forth. I'm not quite sure what they were thinking, what Kunkel was thinking on this one, but oh well. And uh but there is this idea floating in the air that if we're going to be doing Sillywood, we have to also be targeting, we can't just be doing kids. And that kind of felt like it permeated a lot of the discussion this month.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, especially now that we have a rating system. Now it's like, okay, we slap mature or teen on it, and now we can get away with anything.
Indeed. But it's not just Hollywood that's coming for the games industry. It is also the telecoms, as Baby Bells form multimedia colossus.
3 of the regional telephone companies in the USA, 3 of the so-called Baby Bells, NYNEX Corporation of New York, Pacific Telesis Group of San Francisco, and Bell Atlantic Corporation of Philadelphia have announced that they have teamed up with Michael Ovitz, the Hollywood super agent, and will form 2 new companies, a media company that will provide content with the help of Ovitz, and a second that will consist of the technical network to link up with homes starting next year. Each of the Baby Bells will contribute about $100 million into the venture. The venture is designed to offer video-on-demand shopping, multiplayer computer games, sports, personalized news, interactive advertising, and education services. Ovitz, who represents people like Steven Spielberg, will be providing talent.
Yeah, so this is kind of a preview in a way of what's about to come as part of the dot-com bubble, which is there's an understanding starting to form that on-demand entertainment, shopping, whatever, in the home is going to be the future. They're early. We've talked about some other episodes. They're early, but they were right. And they can see even at this time it was the future. But the infrastructure is too expensive. All the fiber optic that has to go down, all the cellular 1G, 2G stuff, if you're getting into wireless, that has to go down, is also expensive that even the big bad telecoms cannot finance this alone. And so you're starting to see, this today it's this, tomorrow it's AOL Time Warner, but it's all the same idea of we have to raise the money, we have to create the ventures to build the infrastructure, and how do we convince the markets, how do we convince investors that the infrastructure is worth investing in? The content. So we have to bring the content people in to be a part of this whole thing.
And we need to add to that, it's not just the infrastructure. You're also going to have dedicated devices in each home.
Yep.
There's no standardization, which increases the cost. And there's really no idea. And this is why this story is so interesting with 3 different Baby Bells, because the idea I'm reading into this would be that they would be sharing the content.
Right.
This idea of, well, okay, you make the content, it's just on your system. Well, how much content are you producing, and how limited is the reach of that content?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's kind of like, they release a TV show for Netflix. Well, that's great. Almost everybody has Netflix. You release it on Apple TV. Now suddenly you've massively reduced the number of people who can get it. You release it on Tubi, and people ask, what the hell is Tubi?
You're right.
So yeah, this is the problem that they're dealing with, because it's not just going to go over the internet.
Right.
They're still thinking of their network, and it's on their system, as opposed to opening it up. But again, we will talk so much about the internet today. That's starting to rear its head, and some people are seeing that as the future. Other people are still thinking in a more traditional cable television or telephone network model.
Right. And I'm sure, I mean, I don't know this for certain, but I imagine that by now the question of the questions that are ultimately answered by the Telecommunications Act of 1996 are starting to come up. It's like, we're a cable company. Can we do stuff on phone lines? We're a phone company. Can we do stuff through cable infrastructure? What's this whole cellular thing going to be? And I there's got to already be an idea that logjam is going to break in some way at some point, and they've got to position themselves to be ready when they can suddenly invade other markets that they've traditionally been kept out of as well. I mean, I assume something like the Telecommunications Act of 1996 had to have been years in the making, something that landmark. So,
well, that's an interesting one, because there's also discussion, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, that, and you mentioned it earlier, that for the European community, it's not the EU yet, but for the European community, they've got their deregulation law already passed. Everybody's working towards the implementation. And that's going to say, you know, cable TV can provide you a telephone line, telephone line can provide you cable TV, blah, blah, blah. And in England, they already have that. That deregulation already exists, even though, and we will talk about this a little bit later, nobody has signed up for it because nobody has signed up for it. And the technology that's necessary to make that useful is going to come from the internet. But yeah, that deregulation is going to happen, and it's clear it's going to happen. Otherwise, what if you're not allowed to sell cable television over the telephone line, why would you as a Baby Bell be worried about creating movies?
Exactly. So the convergence is coming, and everyone sees it, including the agents. We already talked about Michael Ovitz, but there's also William Morris goes interactive.
Talent agency Behemoth.
I think it's Behemoth,
thank
isn't
you.
it?
Oh my goodness. Behemoth, William Morris has, according to Adweek, begun approaching selective agencies to coordinate efforts to get new media project deals. Some negotiations concern product placement in new media productions or the placement of talent into projects.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Sillywood thing is happening. Everyone knows that the World Wide Web is only going to keep growing, and digital entertainment is going to keep growing. And so, the agents want their 10%.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows Wing Commander 3 is right around the corner.
That's right.
All the magazines had articles. All the magazines had screenshots this month. And so there's even ads from, I think it was Intel, was running ads with a giant screenshot of one of the spaceships from Wing Commander 3. Is like, you need a Pentium to play this, so come on down.
Yeah. Absolutely. And of course, you mentioned that lack of standardization in terms of home delivery methods. And there are obviously companies working on that end of the equation as well, including Siemens gets into set-top boxes.
German engineering giant Siemens AG has allied with Scientific Atlanta Incorporated and Sun Microsystems Incorporated to develop interactive video services for businesses and homes around the world. The Siemens Alliance will sell equipment to help telephone companies install video equipment on their networks and to help cable companies install switching systems to carry two-way voice services. The alliance is supposed to provide Baby Bells with an alternative supplier of next-generation telecommunications infrastructure hardware, as the only large-scale provider at the moment is AT&T, with whom, for example, Pacific Bell and Bell Atlantic have already signed deals. Whether the alliance can be a true alternative is yet to be seen, as Masoud Jabbar, Sun Microsystems CFO, said, "We are being very prudent in attacking this marketplace. There's been a lot of hype, And he said the alliance is, quote, evolutionary, end quote, and would not cost the partners very much at the start.
Which is really just a fancy way of saying we don't know where this is going yet. We know it's going somewhere. So we're starting to poke at it, but we don't want to go down an evolutionary dead end because, I mean, obviously, they're German companies, so I'm sure they're doing some of the same stuff for European companies. But in America, where the bells are, this deregulation has not happened yet. It will not happen until the passage of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. And so they don't want to be caught going down the wrong hole, depending on what Congress does.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't know how big of an issue for them things like, NTSC versus PAL are for something like this, but it's a very expensive thing to research and develop and get up and running. Now, side note, Intel is also getting into the set-top box game using PC infrastructure and is working with companies like Netscape, Intuit, Wells Fargo, eShop, and more to realize what it is calling cable port, which will provide back-end equipment as well as set-top boxes for interactive cable services.
Yeah, and we talked about this before, but this is a time where even though computers are coming into more and more homes, they're still not considered the entertainment hub of the home. And there's still a lot of thought that the World Wide Web isn't going to really take off like truly mass market. Not that it's not taking off, but truly mass market, where everyone 9 to 90 is using it until you are accessing it through the television, which is the center of the entertainment hub of the typical American home. And so that's why in this time period, as the World Wide Web is just taking off, that there is this huge push into set-top boxes.
Oh, definitely. And also, and I cut a story about this, how Philips announces a big push towards selling MPEG decoders into Japan this month. Because if you're going to be transferring this kind of data, this video on demand and so forth, it's all going to be over some kind of digitally encoded video file. And the question is going to be, which format is it going to be and how much processing power do you need on the receiving end to turn that back into an analog signal that the television set can process. And the move to digital television, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's got to be simplifying the hardware requirements, because a digital to analog and analog to digital conversion is not a simple thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And continuing our examination of how the telecoms are getting into this crazy video game business, TCI buys into Acclaim.
Telecommunications Incorporated, the U.S.'s leading cable communications carrier, has purchased a 10% stake in video game maker Acclaim Entertainment Incorporated and have agreed to form a new company, quote, for the development and acquisition of entertainment software for broadband interactive networks, as well as for the promotion of a new standard broadband network game platform to be incorporated into advanced set-top boxes, end quote.
Set-top boxes, man, they were a big deal at the time.
Oh, geez,
people really thought it was the future, and then they realized it wasn't. And then Microsoft thought it was again, and essentially it turned the Xbox platform into the new version of a set-top box, and we all know how that went. Now they're run by an AI person.
Yeah, that's going to end well. Now, in my defense, and I've said this on the show before, I only bought an Xbox 360 because I could watch ESPN3, which was the online service, through the Xbox, because I couldn't run it normally through my TV otherwise. So
you were the demographic they were targeting. You were not the demographic that was buying.
Very, very true. Plus, that was the 360. I mean, I did not buy an Xbox One for that purpose.
And also, I mean, it was really the rise. It might have been a good idea if smart TVs weren't becoming a thing at the same time and rendered the entire concept unnecessary. But that is a story for a far distant day that this show may never get to.
Hopefully not. I don't want to live to be that old.
Indeed. Moving on then to Europe Telecom as TeleWest goes public.
The UK's largest cable operator has decided to ride the multimedia hype train and launch an IPO. The company will be offering 216 million shares, representing 25% of the total shares, and this will not impact the main shareholders. U.S. operators TCI and U.S. West, which each control 36.7% of the company. The UK is one of the few countries that allow cable companies to offer both television and telephony services, making the multimedia potential of cable that much more attractive.
Yep. Basically what we already talked about, so not much more to say there, but convergence is coming. That's the headline here.
And also I just wanted to point out this company is primarily owned by two U.S. based media companies, TCI, which we just talked about with Acclaim, and US West. So this idea of these international media providers with infrastructure interests. I mean, Sky is already a thing in across Europe at this point, in Australia. So this is kind of the beginning of a very different and new way of globalizing the media landscape.
Absolutely. Now we'll end our look at the business side of things with a few acquisitions in the video game space itself, starting with BCE Holdings to buy Rage and Software Creations.
British amusement arcade operator and snooker table maker BCE Holdings plc has announced that it will be purchasing two game developers, Rage Software Limited and Software Creations Limited. The acquisitions are to cost about £14 million in total, with Rage costing $4 million and Software Creations the rest. Trading of BCE shares were halted on October 21st and will be reopened with a new share placing that will quadruple the share price, making the shareholders of the two development houses overnight millionaires, according to the Daily Mail. The combined company will have profits of £2.1 million and will be worth £24.7 million when trading resumes on December 15th. Yeah, and this is kind of a weird merger. It's or a set of acquisitions. I mean, a company that has absolutely zero connection with the home gaming market suddenly purchasing these two developers is a pretty ballsy move. I mean, it's kind of like GameStop trying to buy eBay. That's a joke that'll probably age poorly, but oh well. So this comes out of almost left field. There's a lot of commentary about it in the various newspapers, but it does create one of the larger developers / publishers suddenly, at least by market cap. And the Mail on Sunday profiles the main beneficiaries of the deal, Richard Kay and Mike Webb, founders of Software Creations, which were the second holders of NES licenses after they managed to reverse engineer the NES, and Paul Finnegan of Rage, who had sold his 10% stake in Ocean, a company now worth £56 million, back in 1987. So it was kind of interesting just to see the pedigree of some of these guys. And finally, David Tabazel, an analyst for Durlacher and Company, the brokerage that organized the BCE takeover, has issued a report estimating that the video and computer game industries would grow from their current 13.5 billion pounds a year in retail sales to about 20 billion pounds in 1998, with the new crop of systems and multimedia products leading the way. The report also states that more consolidation is on the way as the games are getting ever more sophisticated and the equipment necessary to make games is getting more expensive, but there is more work than the developers can actually handle, and they are getting more selective about the jobs they take on. Now, a lot of that felt like just, well, we're trying to sell at people on this stock sale, but the recognition of the massive increase in the development costs for the new systems. This is one of the few places I found where it's actually discussed openly.
Right.
And
Very
I think that that's important. It's going to come up again a few times in the in either Sillywood or in the context of 3D rendered graphics like Donkey Kong Country, but I think that those are still relatively small increases in comparison with the development of large 3D worlds and all the stuff that goes into that.
Absolutely. Our next acquisition, Warner buys Renegade.
Amiga Games magazine reports that just as the autumn European computer trade show got underway, news broke that Time Warner had purchased Renegade Software, the publishing operation founded by the Bitmap brothers. Don't worry, though, business will continue as usual. Renegade will just have more capital to work with. They backed this up by showing off Sensible World of Soccer, Flight of the Amazon Queen, and Rough and Tumble. Yeah, Renegade's not going to be around for too much longer.
No.
Yeah, this is kind of the they get bought up. They get renamed to Time Warner something or other, and by 1997 they get shut down.
Yeah, so. And bigger picture here, Warner has been re-engaging with the video game industry in this period. We've talked by this time about the formation of Time Warner Interactive and all of that. And so they're re-engaging on the back of the Sillywood thing. And then like so many media companies, when the Sillywood thing kind of falls apart, they're backing off again.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad because Renegade, for those who weren't following it, they're like the last bastion of quality Amiga software at this point.
Yeah.
Team 17 is already moved away, but Renegade was still publishing all the hits. And it's our last little bit of hope disappears. Granted, we will talk more about the complete loss of hope for Commodore and the Amiga a little bit later in the show. But yeah, this hurts. When I read that, I was like, oh man.
I'm sorry for your loss, Carl, but I do not share in it. And our final acquisition in this section this month, Mindscape to buy a Trade Concept. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah,
a Trade Concept.
I don't know how the French would pronounce it. It's a French.
Oh, it's
company.
A French. Yeah. A trade. I don't know. A trade.
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 It's ATREID.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Mindscape to buy a company.
Bingo. Mindscape, itself recently acquired by British media conglomerate Pearson, has announced that they will acquire French developer Trade Concept, which also has a distribution arm called Callisto. They will later be renamed Mindscape Bordeaux. And the reason I included this was Pearson has been on a very, very aggressive buying spree. We're going to see some other stuff that they buy outside, slightly outside of the video game industry later on in the episode, and the idea of building up these distribution networks, especially because you don't have digital distribution yet. You don't really have the EU in its full form yet. So you're still in need of these local distribution, these national distribution operations in order to stand a chance in the market. And so that's really what they're buying here is the distribution arm.
Yeah, and you're going to see more and more in this, especially from like American publishers and the whatnot, because now with kind of that Amiga market finally falling apart and Sony about to come in and really transform the console market in Europe, you're going to see a lot more of a global market that American companies that weren't necessarily paying as much attention to Europe back in the day, American and Japanese. It's not just the Americans that were not paying as close attention to Europe, now kind of need to pay attention to Europe as another major marketplace for its products. And those American and Japanese companies are less established there. And so you're going to see a lot more buying of distributorships in Europe by those companies as the market changes.
Yeah, definitely. Everything is getting more complicated.
That's right. Moving on now to a couple of items of CoinOp news, starting with video game rating systems still a thorn in CoinOp's side.
The two big CoinOp organizations in the USA, the AMOA and the AAMA, are discussing ways to introduce content warnings to CoinOp video games. While the ESRB rating system is a good start in their opinion, it doesn't quite meet the needs of CoinOp, as dip switch settings could alter a game's age rating, and relying on external warnings like stickers could lead to local or state regulators trying to go after arcades. The current thought is that some kind of content warning during the game's attract mode may be the best option. Yeah, so I mean, there is a sticker system that does pop up at one point, but at least in my memory, it never really catches on with all the systems, which makes sense given that so many arcade cabinets are constantly having their innards switched out as the operator requires. So, and the sticker is just there. I mean, it's a sticker. It can be removed. It can be scraped off. And in an arcade setting where teenagers are basically being jerks all day long, that's also not an impossible thing to conceive of. So putting it in the attract mode is really the only thing that makes sense.
Absolutely. Then our other CoinOp story of the month, Sega goes big with VR1.
Sega has introduced what it is calling the first game to combine a motion simulator with virtual reality technology. The game is located in an amusement complex in the port city of Yokohama. 8 people sit in a roller coaster-like carriage and, through the use of a VR headset, take on the role of a gunner in a space combat scenario.
Again, Nakayama has been very public about how he wants Sega to be the next Disney. Both Sega and NAMCO have been investing in what they consider to be the theme park of the future, and this is just another concept that they hope will take off in this theme park of the future.
Yep. And the weird thing is, I mean, have you seen video of this?
I have not, no.
Okay, I included a video of it in the show notes. It's basically all these people are in this one platform that just moves up and down. I don't believe that they actually know each other is there. I don't think that there's any cooperation, like, one gunner is doing this or that. But it looks like it probably could have been fun. It's clearly using the virtuality headsets. So I don't know how good the actual performance on the machine is. But I mean, you probably didn't get more than 2 or 3 minutes out of the ride. It would have been ungodly expensive.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just don't see how that would be a viable product in the long term.
Absolutely. Turning our attention now to console news, where, of course, all of the excitement is focused in Japan, where those next-gen systems are about to launch. Our first headline is Japanese next-gen holiday lineup set.
Nikkei Weekly reports that all 5 of the 32-bit contenders for the holiday season are set to go. NEC Home Electronics Company has the PCFX and expects to sell 500,000 units in its initial year. Matsushita Electric Industrial Company will launch the FZ10, a cost-reduced version of their initial 3DO console. Sega Saturn is expected to move 2 million units in its first year, and Sony is expected to sell 1 million units of its PlayStation in the first 6 months. Victor Company will be launching their V Saturn as well. Yeah, so
bits coming. Yep.
This is the lineup. What? Sorry.
Oh, no. I was just saying, yep, 32 bits coming.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's already here. Some of it's already on the market. Now, Nintendo, the undisputed leader of the Japanese market and whose 64-bit system won't be out until next year, said about the 44,800 yen 3DO via Hiroshi Imanishi, chief of their public relations section, quote, "Let's be realistic. Who is going to buy such an expensive product unless the games are interesting?" End quote. And
it depends on how badly you need your hentai, but moving on.
Yeah. So just saying, this is not the only sassy comment from a Nintendo official we will be hearing today. Because, yeah, Nintendo. Nintendo is also hyping up their 64-bit Ultra 64 system by promoting their relationships with key developers, among them DMA Design and its head, David Jones. Nintendo spokesperson Hiroshi Imanishi said, quote, "There are very many software developers, but those who are special are very limited in number. Our priority is striking a relationship with only those few talented software people of the genius type. And DMA Design was selected to be one of those very few companies. They are more than a contractor to Nintendo. They are a second partner." End quote. Nintendo also announced that they will be working with Dallas-based Paradigm Simulations Incorporated of Dallas, Texas, to help them produce 3D games. Paradigm will end up developing Pilot Wing 64.
Yes, that's the best of the best. That's why a little later on they will announce Game Tech as another one of these best of the best partners. No, it's they're in a situation where they have lost control of this industry. They would prefer to keep some control and have some unique games, and so they're basically going to companies that are willing to invest significantly in an exclusive basis on the Ultra 64 at the expense of other systems. They're not demanding the complete exclusivity contracts that they had back in the day, but they're basically saying if you want access to the hardware in advance, you need to make us exclusive games using the hardware. Your other games can be whatever, but these games will be exclusive. And not everyone is willing to make that deal, as we'll see as these announcements go on. Not exactly always going to be the creme de la creme here.
Especially when they find out that its cartridges for this system are going to be very, very expensive.
Exactly. And moving on, we are going to get into some particular news now on this next gen as the Saturn release date set.
The Japanese financial news outlet Jiji Press Ticker Service reports that Sega has set the release of the Saturn in Japan as November 22nd. Sony is planning on launching their machine on December 3rd. According to the Associated Press, the launch prices will be $457 for the Saturn and $406 for the PlayStation.
And that's important. I mean, the release dates are interesting, but it's important to look at those numbers. They're pretty close in price, and they're both over $400. And everyone is generally assuming, probably correctly, that these companies are, even at these prices, selling at a loss. So when a system that's launching for $406 suddenly launches for $299 in the United States a year later, that's why it's a rather big hullabaloo and a big controversy. I mean, obviously consumers are happy, but it's a big controversy within the industry and a big controversy within even Sony itself. So I just wanted to kind of point out, like, remember those prices there, because they're going to look very different in a year in another country.
Yeah. Well, and if you go back a few months in 1994, Sega had announced their launch price and PlayStation came out a little bit below that. So these prices come out with Sony announcing theirs after Sega's. So that order of the release price is also there. There's also a fun little comment, I didn't include it here, in one of the reports where somebody was, I don't know if joking or maybe speculating that Sony might just move their release date up a couple of weeks to, force Sega to deal with them at the same time. As far as I can tell, that didn't happen, but that was something that that at least one article was talking about.
Absolutely. And despite all the next-gen systems already announced, we have another late contender popping up as Matsushita announces next-gen system for 1995.
Japanese electronics giant Matsushita Electric Industrial Company has announced that they are likely to launch a new 64-bit system by December of 1995.
This, of course, through their continuing partnership with the 3DO company.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. We talked in our last 1994 jump that Trip Hawkins already hinted at the existence of Bulldog, which would ultimately become the M2 chipset. And here, this November 15th Matsushita press release does not mention 3DO at all.
Right.
Which was kind of weird.
Sure. Yeah. But I would love to know more about what Matsushita was thinking in this time period, what exactly they were thinking they were going to accomplish in video games. We don't have a lot of sources. I would love to have more. But it's not just in the pure video game realm that they are looking to expand their horizons, as Matsushita and IBM team up.
Matsushita Electric Industrial Company of Japan and International Business Machines Corporation of the USA have announced that they will be signing formal letters of intent over the next few days to jointly develop set-top boxes using the 64-bit PowerPC chip to enable movie and game downloads, home shopping, and other PC-like functions on home TVs, and that the terminals will be 3DO compatible. The companies are also negotiating to use the PowerPC chips in personal digital assistants. Now, I looked it up. Yes, the M2 hardware used the PowerPC chip. So, to answer your previous question, what were they thinking? I think, because if you go back to the original 3DO announcements, when they had the deal with AT&T and so forth, and they already talked then about the MPEG add-on and so forth.
Sure.
I think that the original version idea of 3DO for Matsushita was the set-top box that just also happens to play games and also plays VCDs.
That very well could be. Obviously, even 3DO itself was well aware of the potential there, because web TV basically spins out of 3DO.
Yeah.
That's not exactly how it happened, but a lot of 3DO people at web TV is all I'm saying.
Exactly. And the idea that, okay, we didn't hit that mark with the first generation of the hardware, but we might be able to hit it with the second generation of the hardware, makes sense.
It does. I can see the logic there. That would not surprise me. However, this has to all happen before the whole thing blows up in everybody's faces. And our next story does not bode well for that, as 3DO announces massive loss.
The 3DO company has announced a second quarter loss of $12.8 million. That brings its total losses since going public in 1993 to $70 million. Revenues nearly doubled in the last quarter to $5 million from $2.6 million a year ago, but 3DO said that software royalties were the main source of sales in the just ended quarter, while sales of development systems accounted for most revenue a year earlier. The latest result also includes a charge of $2.7 million for a stock incentive program that issued stock in 3DO to companies that make 3DO consoles. So, shenanigans to unpack, if you will.
Indeed.
So, this idea here, number one, they're losing a bunch of money. But the shift in where their revenue is coming from the sale of development systems the year earlier to revenue from software, tells us that, well, okay, they're selling more software. I guess that's good. But at the same time, it also means those very complex development systems that they were selling. I mean, it's not like a Super Nintendo, which is basically a couple of chips on top of an Apple II GS. Instead, now it's, super high-end chips a system that you have to buy separately. That was the main driver of revenue in 1993 should scare everybody, and the fact that it's dropped this much might just mean that nobody's bothering to buy development kits anymore because they're not planning on supporting it any longer. I don't know. Unfortunately, we didn't have more detail on how much the sale of development kits dropped over that year, at least not in the article that I found.
Gotcha. All right.
Now,
and we also...
Their annual reports would have that number in it.
Yeah. We also have a new entrant into that 3DO market as Gold Star launches 3DO in USA.
Korean electronics giant Gold Star Company has launched their version of the 3DO, the Gold Star 3DO Interactive Multiplayer in the US for $400. The same price as the units from Matsushita's Panasonic.
But that's not all, because 3DO is springing up in even more unlikely places as creative to launch 3DO Blaster.
For just $399, the 3DO Blaster will turn your PC into a 3DO.
Just what I always wanted my PC to be able to do. And it's such a reasonable price.
Well, there was recently a video, I can't remember which channel it was, where they tried to get a 3DO Blaster to actually work. Oh my Lord. Apparently this thing was super, super finicky. It would only work with certain CD drives. And yeah, it's just basically a huge pain in the ass to get it up and running inside the PC. And ultimately all it's doing is interfacing with the VGA card so the output would go out, and that's about it. And it's no. So yeah, a bad idea.
Indeed. But now turning our attention to a company that is still experiencing some success in all of this quagmire as Nintendo launches massive DKC Blitz.
Nintendo America launched a $15 million TV campaign introducing their SNES game Donkey Kong Country. Emphasis is placed in the ads on the fact that the game is not available on any other system. This ad campaign is on top of the $5 million ad campaign for the Kellogg's tie-in cereal promotion. Nintendo hopes to sell some 6.5 million units of DKC globally in 1994, even though some analysts think 2.5 million units is more realistic. Dealers in the US have already ordered 2.6 million copies. Analyst Walter Miao of Link Resources said, quote, "Unfortunately, it's only one hit," end quote.
Oh, but what a hit. I mean, you can understand why people were kind of less bullish on it, because even though the game looks incredible, go back to my question earlier in the episode. How many mascot-based platformers do we need?
Exactly.
But they weren't accounting for the fact that this actually looked like something new. I mean, we can argue about how much of it was impressive graphics versus impressive gameplay versus whatever, but this looked like something new. This is the game that shows us that people were not tired of video games. They were tired of the same old video games. And this felt different enough to people because of the incredible graphics, especially, that it was something people thought was worth buying. And it becomes a sign that maybe we'll be okay in the next generation after all, when we finally have a whole suite of games that look and play completely differently from stuff in the 8-bit and 16-bit eras.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I just looked up Wikipedia, never the source to truly be trusted, but according to that, 9.3 million copies of the game get sold.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a huge, huge hit.
You have a note, sir.
Oh, I do have a note. You're right. Nintendo of America announced on November 30th that sales of DKC had exceeded 500,000 units, grossing more than $30 million over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. 25% of the 2 million units shipped had already been sold, with 4 shopping weeks till Christmas left. And
Indeed.
yes, this game is going to be everywhere. You cannot move without seeing an ad for it, without seeing promotion for it. It's like I said, there's a giant Kellogg's ad campaign, and
sent a videotape to Nintendo Power subscribers.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
We did.
And
it's just,
it's huge.
It's absolutely huge. But Carl, they are not the only console company that's going to be spending big this holiday season, as Atari to spend big in Europe.
Atari has announced a £5 million ad spend to promote the Jaguar in Europe. This is a massive jump from their £300,000 ad spend in 1994.
Ooh, big spenders.
Yeah, I mean, that Sega money is all going to go to ads in 1995. I mean, it's almost like they're planning on still being around by the end of 1995.
Indeed. But that's not all, because Jaguar launches in Japan.
The Jaguar consoles have begun to appear in Japanese Toys R Us stores and other selected retail outlets. Moomin Corporation of Tokyo is in charge of distribution in the country. The system is retailing for between $250 and $300, depending on the games package, with individual titles retailing for between $50 and $70. Ron Beltramo, vice president of marketing at Atari, told Newsbites, quote, "The Japanese embrace new technology very fast and in general are always interested in being adopters of the latest technology. While there are a number of other new game systems being introduced there, we feel the power and performance of Jaguar combined with the distribution agreement with Moomin gives us a distinct advantage over other game products," end quote.
Yes, that will give them a huge advantage over Sega, Sony, and Nintendo in Japan for sure. I mean, spokesperson's gonna spokesperson, but
Jesus, yeah.
But my goodness. Yes.
I mean, and this was a News Bites News Network article from November 22nd. Remember, the Sega Saturn
Yeah.
is coming out on November 22nd.
Exactly. Alongside a little title called Virtua Fighter. May have heard of that
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've heard of it. But hey, we have Iron Soldier. It's Iron Soldier.
But Atari is not the only console maker that is starting to expand into foreign markets as Sony announces Liverpool Dev Center.
Sony Electronics Publishing Limited will create 250 new jobs at Liverpool's Wavertree Technology Park. Sony's 35 million plus facility will attract 7.2 million pounds in public funds, according to The Guardian. Psygnosis co-founder Jonathan Ellis is managing director of both Sony Electronics Publishing, a subsidiary of Sony Music Entertainment UK Group, and Sony Psygnosis. UK Inward Investment Minister Charles Wardle said of the move, quote, Merseyside's willing and flexible workforce was obviously a great attraction. Our membership of the European community, more than 300 million consumers, without the constraints posed by the social chapter, also makes the UK, to quote Jacques Delors, a quote paradise for inward investors, end quote.
Yeah, I mean, Sony's really onto something here, which is that Sony is already a very powerful brand in Europe. They're already very well established in Europe. And Europe has never been the focus of the other console companies. Now, yes, I know Sega, people love it in Britain. Like, it's not that Sega didn't put some effort into Europe. It's not that Nintendo didn't eventually put some effort into Europe. It's never been the prime focus. Sega was still living and dying on what they were doing in America, not what they were doing in Europe, even if they were winning the war, so to speak, in Europe. Sony is going to be coming in from the very beginning with a heavy UK and Europe approach, with strong Europe and UK distribution, strong Europe and UK development, and they truly become the video game brand of Europe, I think, in a way that neither of those other companies ever did. I mean, Sony and Europe just continue to go together, even in the tough times like the PS3 era. So, I mean, this is a deliberate strategy on Sony's part to really gain a foothold in developed markets that are still, in a lot of ways, largely untapped.
I completely agree with all of that. It also doesn't hurt that Psygnosis was already in Liverpool. So their biggest acquisition in Europe is already there. Now, one of the big things, or a sort of side note that I thought was interesting here, is the line here from Charles Wardle from the UK government about how they can use the UK to have access to the European community, but they don't have the constraints of the social chapter. I had to look up what that was. And the Thatcher government had restricted the UK's embrace of EU regulations.
Right.
That's why they never became part of the Euro, for example. But
partially what brought our government down, but
yeah.
Anyway,
but it also brought down her successor later on, who screwed everything up by tying the currency to pegging it to everybody else. But the social chapter was the set of regulations that said, yeah, everybody has to have certain minimum standards for worker protections and stuff. And the UK had taken themselves out of that. That was the social chapter. So we'll still be able to sell in, but we don't have to pay our people the same or give them the same vacation. And that makes us very attractive.
So they can have a UK sweatshop.
Exactly. There's so much talk of this, and the amount of money that they're getting, that 7.2 million in public funds, most of that is coming from the European community. And the $35 million for the facility, they're not paying the difference. A lot of that is then all stuff that's already been built and so on and so forth. Basically, they're just throwing money at Sony to create 250 jobs. And a huge chunk of those, as far as I can tell, were the existing Psygnosis jobs.
That makes sense. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So, sorry. This was another one of those deep dive moments.
No, I appreciate that. I find that fascinating. Our last console maker expanding into foreign market story here in our triptych: Nintendo signs Russian distribution deal.
Nintendo of Japan has signed an exclusive distribution deal for the Super NES in Russia with AO Dendy, the retail chain owned by Russian companies Steepler and Inkombank. Dendy made a name for themselves selling Taiwanese-made Famiclones right after the fall of the Soviet Union and started distributing Sega's Mega Drive through its stores in 1993. Under the new licensing deal, hardware will be shipped to Russia via Germany, and the Dendy stores will specialize in Nintendo hardware such as the SNES and Game Boy, while Steepler will continue to be able to sell Sega hardware as well. This follows a deal between Sega and Russian company Farus, which handles most of Sega's distribution in Russia. The Russian video game market is estimated to be $250 million. And now the weird thing that Dendy and the Famiclones that get sold there in Russia simply get known as Dendy machines. And there's this whole cult thing. I've put a link to the Wikipedia page on here as well. So it's kind of weird that they end up with the official license after having sold who knows how many illegal Famiclones.
Right.
But yeah, and this is this weird market. There was an article a few months before this, and we have to put this in historical context because we're still only about 5 years from the fall of the Soviet Union, or at least the true beginning of the fall of the Soviet Union. So everything is in chaos. There was an article a few months ago that I read talking about crime and the uncertainty in Russia and how, people were basically begging or selling whatever they had, while on television they could see ads for video game systems that would cost more than multiple months worth of wages and all this other stuff. And this article says that game prices will be near $130. Doesn't clarify if that's for a console or a cartridge, but I'm guessing it's for the console.
Right.
And so $130 for a Super Nintendo. In the States, that's going for $99 at this point. So this is a relatively steep up price. Now, I don't know how they're doing sales tax. I don't know what kind of additional charges are there. The fact that they're shipping them through Germany is probably because at this point, because of East Germany, there's still like a free trade zone with Russia. Would not surprise me. But yeah, this is going to be a luxury good in Russia at this point. And it's just interesting to, I guess, try to wrap my head around what the market looks like there at this time, what the shops like this look like, and just get a whole different perspective on how people see gaming at this moment in time.
Absolutely. Now turning to our biggest video game success story of the period, Mortal Kombat 2 launch is massive.
A $10 million ad budget, 2.5 million units shipped, $50 million in first week sales. Mortal Kombat 2 was a massive success for Acclaim.
Yep. Again, we're seeing that hits-driven business that we've talked about a couple times this episode already. The overall market is falling apart, but the hits are still hitting. And Mortal Kombat, as you said, sort of earlier, Street Fighter 2 is played out, but that's because they've saturated the market with the same game over and over again. Mortal Kombat's still a newer franchise. Mortal Kombat 2 added so many different new features, fatality variations, and all of that. So it still feels a little fresh. It's still running, and therefore it's quite successful.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, they advanced the story. The returning characters do get fully new graphic sets, which you couldn't say for Street Fighter. And they didn't just add 4 new characters. I mean, they went from a roster of, 7 plus 2 bosses in the first game to, 12 fighters in Mortal Kombat 2? Is it 12 or 15 or 14? I can't remember.
I don't know, but that math actually sounds pretty similar when you put it like that. That's about 4 new characters.
It's not. I mean, what the hell? I typed MK2 in here, and I'm getting this old. I think it's an old Volkswagen car, like a Golf MK2. Wow. What is wrong? How can my Google account think that when I put in MK2 that's what it would be? I mean,
because ever since they've been investing in Gemini, they have not been investing in their old search engine because they want everyone to go AI. I'm not even joking. This is.
I know, and that is not happening. Okay, it's 12 characters. 12 characters in the game. So plus 2. No, it's 1 or 2. No, 2 bosses. So it's 2 bosses and 12 characters. I mean, that's a massive increase. That's value for money right there.
Yeah, and then just having the friendships and the other kind of specialty fatalities that weren't in the first game. So, you're getting a little bang for your buck. Plus, it's still relatively new. I mean, the first couple of Street Fighter 2 derivatives also sold pretty decently. But
that's true.
The hits are still hitting is the main story here. And everyone else is just trying to keep up, which is why we have a headline here about ad budget rises.
Time Warner Interactive has announced a £2 million European ad budget for Mirage Software's Rise of the Robots.
Whew, man, they're going to sell a lot of that for sure.
Hey, come on. It's going to get a port to CDI. You know that thing's going to sell like hotcakes.
That's how you know you've made it when you're on CDI. That's how you know.
When your super high-tech game will run on the CDI, you know.
Meanwhile, in the world of licensed games, movie tie-ins getting tighter.
The recently released Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and upcoming Pagemaster movies both got same-day video game releases. The normal delay in making a game, which according to a report in Australia's The Age newspaper, is because of the longer production time, has led some movie studios with their own game divisions to begin developing games during the script phase to have them on store shelves in time to benefit from advertising synergies.
Of course, though, this means that you can't often make a very good game because you don't have all the information you need. Even if you're internal and can share assets more freely, you don't have all the information you need to create the game in enough time to then also get the game done by release date. This is one of the things that plagues licensed games then and now.
Yes. And also you don't have the opportunity to, iterate on the gameplay and
you're right.
Be creative and So you're going to end up with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the jump and run platformer. And yes, I know there's a
Yeah.
Sega CD version, which is sort of a point and click adventure thing with a one-on-one fighting mechanic strapped onto it, but that doesn't come out until later, so doesn't count for our discussion here. Yeah. So, and all of this is happening as Sony has had to write off $2.6 billion on its investment in Sony Pictures and continues to lose money with recent flops like City Slickers 2, North, Guarding Tests, and Last Action Hero. The game tie-in for which was made by Sony's Psygnosis.
Yes. Yeah, they're finding the movie business rough. Them and Matsushita both in this time period, because Matsushita has bought Universal, are both finding the movie industry pretty rough in this period. Sony toughs it out. Matsushita not so much.
Yeah. Well, maybe Matsushita gave up when the fact that they did not successfully launch a VCD player.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now, one other note here, Leisure Concepts Inc., a company specialized in licensing deals, reported that some of their video game licensing deals, like The Shadow, were disappointing, but that they just made a deal to license the video game rights for the upcoming James Bond reboot, GoldenEye. No doubt that will appear at the same time as the film release.
No doubt. That film's coming out in 1997, right?
Nope. I believe that was a 1995 release.
Oh, well. Now we turn our attention to handhelds, where we only have one headline, but Carl, it's a big one. Nintendo premieres Virtual Boy.
While the rest of the console market is looking at powerful 3D game systems using 32-bit processors, Nintendo unveiled the Virtual Boy, a system it is touting as a virtual reality system which it premiered at the Nintendo-centric 6th annual Shoshinkai software exhibition. The system creates a red 3D image but does not have head tracking. Kerry Ganofsky of High Voltage Software told the Associated Press, quote, "I think it's a novelty. I'm not sure if it's going to make it or not," end quote, after testing the product at a trade show. He went on to say, "I'm a little baffled as to why it's only in red rather than full color. The system is set to hit both Japan and the US next spring, and Nintendo estimates sales of 3 million hardware units and 14 million software units in Japan. The suggested retail price will be about $200, with software going for $50 to $70.
Oh, Carl, I almost don't know where to start with this headline. I forget, because I know that it's already come up. You know, the system's already come up, but I forget. Did you ever play a Virtual Boy back in the day?
Yes, I demoed a unit at a Blockbuster in Seattle.
Yeah, I demoed it at Best Buy in St. Louis. So, you know, same idea. I never knew anyone who owned it, but I have played it. You know, it's
bad.
It's bad. It is. The red was just unappealing. Why is it only red? Answer, it's cheap. But it's a system. Not only is it bad, but it was a system of completely botched expectations. Just Virtual Boy. The virtual part implies VR, like full VR, what we think of as VR, not just the stereoscopic 3D, but the head tracking and everything else. And the boy implies successor to the Game Boy. And it's like, you know, it's like what Voltaire said about the Holy Roman Empire. Like, it's neither virtual nor a boy. And that is just a problem.
Well, it's virtually playable.
So, like, that made it worse, right? I mean, obviously it was already in a way unappealing, but the expectations were set by that name in a way that was even more detrimental.
Exactly. I mean, the only thing I can think of here is that Nintendo was so freaked out And they must have known at this point that development of the N64 is going much slower than expected. They must have freaked out. They needed something. I mean, we've talked now for several years on the show about how every time the competition is about to launch a new product or is talking up something, Nintendo has to come out and either say, hey, next year we're going to have the better thing.
Right.
We saw this with the launch of the Genesis. We saw this with the launch of the Sega CD. We saw this again and again when the 3DO came out. And this is their idea of just, we got to steal some thunder. We need something out there.
I mean, I'm sure there's some truth to that. I mean, that's basically what happened with Game Boy. That's not why Game Boy started. But as we learned when Florent Gorge published his book on the Game Boy, that system was very nearly canceled. And it was basically only allowed to continue to launch because the Super Famicom ended up being delayed a year and they wanted to throw something in that gap. Like, it was already under development, but it was going to be canceled. And that comes straight from insider sources at Nintendo, not speculation by Gorge. So it could be a little bit of that here too. Yokoi did go into a little bit about why he did it. I mean, Reflections technology came to them, the company that came up with the technology. They had gone to Sega too, because Kalinsky has said they came to him. And Yokoi was responding in large part, according to him, to the crash that was going on, essentially. I mean, he wasn't thinking of it in economic terms, but he was thinking of it in terms of the creative stagnation, the way 16-bit games weren't that different from 8-bit games. There's not that much of a difference between Castlevania or Contra or Mega Man or any of them on Nintendo versus Super Nintendo, other than, obviously much better graphics and animation and music and whatnot, but not in gameplay. And I think he felt that there was a way to come at video games in another direction and maybe revive some of that flagging interest. Obviously, this was not the way to do it, but I think that's what started him down the road. And then it ended up having to be compromised over and over. It was color LEDs would have been too expensive. Head tracking wasn't going to work. All of this stuff. I don't know that it was ever going to be made for head tracking, but you couldn't wear it on your head because it was so heavy.
Yeah.
So I think it just kept getting more and more compromised. Interestingly, Argonaut was actually working on a VR system. And I mean, obviously Sega came out with one, Atari on the Jaguar came out with one. Anything Nintendo would have come out with in full VR would have been just as overpriced and sucky as what everyone else was doing. But Argonaut was actually working on a VR system and proposed it to Nintendo, and Yokoi made sure that it was killed in favor of the Virtual Boy project, which was his baby. So,
oh man, see, that also does not surprise me in the least. But then again, we will be talking about the shenanigans of why Donkey Kong is only in one Donkey Kong Country game on the Super NES. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it makes sense that the crisis of stagnation in the industry, the fact that the competitors are about to launch systems. Now, they're not going to get the Virtual Boy out in time for this Christmas. It's coming out next year. But, I mean, they got to get the hype train going somehow. And $200, I mean, it was not a cheap system given how limited it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Reflection already. The same day that the Virtual Boy was shown, Nintendo Company Limited of Japan also announced that they had taken a minority share in Reflection Technology Incorporated of Waltham, Massachusetts, the privately held company whose patents allowed the Virtual Boy to create its 3D visual effects, and Nintendo will get the worldwide exclusive rights to the tech.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, Reflection approached them. They approached Sega, and Kalinsky turned it down. They approached Nintendo, and Yokoi was interested. So the technology did not originate at Nintendo, but the idea of the exact system that came out, the Virtual Boy, was fully developed at Nintendo using that technology.
Yeah. And then one last little bit, and this was interesting. Virtuality, makers of the Virtuality arcade hardware, reacted to the Virtual Boy debut by clarifying that Virtual Boy will not have an impact on their upcoming VR headset for the Jaguar, which Atari plans on having on the market by December of 1995 and will begin manufacturing in the second half of 1995 because their headset will track the user's head, have color displays, and allow for immersive play. Virtuality also said that royalties from the Atari deal will impact their earnings in the second half of 1995.
Let me restate that for them. What they're saying is, don't worry, we're not going to screw up our system horribly in the way Nintendo has. We are going to screw up our system horribly in ways that are completely unique to us. So we are not competing in the massive flop space of video games.
That and Virtuality is basically broke already at this point.
Yes.
And they do not want people freaking out that their one chance to actually maybe turn a profit is going to be undercut by Nintendo.
Yeah. I mean, VR was in the air, right? VR is always 5 years away.
Oh, yeah.
It's been 5 years away since the late 80s or early 90s.
Yep.
And it's still just 5 years away, Carl, from being really, really good. Though I got to say, I played Arkham Shadow on the Oculus, and it was absolutely amazing. And then Meta decided to get out of all their VR stuff and canceled the sequel. And I'm actually heartbroken about that. It feels like VR is actually almost in a decent place now, but the audience excitement just isn't there because you still, even today, have to pay a premium for last generation's technology. I mean, presented in a new way, which can be interesting, but it still hasn't hit that sweet spot with the public. But it actually has gotten kind of good at this point, in all honesty.
I mean, the little bit I've used the modern systems, it is really good. It's just you're producing the same image that you would normally have on your screen twice.
Exactly.
So you need basically twice as much raw processing power to get the same result as soon as you move to VR.
Exactly.
And on top of that, then the movement issue of, how do I move around the space doesn't always feel as natural. And ultimately, you still look like an idiot with this thing on your head.
Yeah. So it's to the point where it's actually decent now, but it can't be mass market under those circumstances. And if it's not mass market, everyone eventually gives up on it, just as Meta did after throwing so much money at it, frightful amounts of money at it.
That is true. That is true. Oh,
anywho, yep, that does it for our handheld / portable / whatever the Virtual Boy is supposed to be news this month. We will now turn our attention to the computer scene, which, in contrast to our other areas, seems pretty bright as PC sales boom.
PC shipments for the home market are expected to jump 17% in 1994 to 6.85 million machines, according to Link Resources Corporation, a PC market research firm. Consumer purchases will account for 45% of all PC units sold in the U.S. in 1994, and more than half of the purchasers are first-time purchasers. The massive software libraries being offered with the machines, the ability to do home office work, and the burgeoning promise of online connectivity are the prime motivators. Average consumer spend has stayed the same, though, at between $1,600 and $1,700, but the specs of the machines are jumping by leaps and bounds.
And I would just add to that, and we've mentioned this before, but the clone market, especially with the clones coming from the Far East, has matured so much that competition has really driven down prices, which is also spurring adoption. I mean, as you said here, the average spend isn't changing, but the specs are getting so much better, and that's because that price competition and all of that cheap manufacturing in East Asia is allowing those prices to allow the public to get something that is affordable and looks attractive with the World Wide Web and the home office coming into being. So,
yeah, and those CD, all that software that's being offered.
Oh yeah,
those tons and tons of software. That was never going to be a viable option in the disk era. When you had, if you had to deliver 40 or 50 disks with the machine, that was not going to work. But hey, that's cool little foldable sleeve of 10 or even 20 CDs, not a problem.
Yep. Nope. I remember when we got our first, our Pentium, which was our first computer, we had a CD-ROM drive, had a LucasArts game bundle with Rebel Assault, Fate of Atlantis, and Day of the Tentacle.
I mean,
and those
right
kind of things
there,
were common.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. Then you add the encyclopedia to it. Who needs the internet?
Exactly. Exactly. So a good time for PCs. And it's not just the PC companies getting excited either, as Bandai and Apple team up for children's PC.
Bandai Company announced that they have teamed up with Apple Computer Incorporated and will jointly develop a personal computer for children. While the system will use the Macintosh operating system, no other specs, release date, or price have been announced. Bandai hopes to leverage its video game expertise on the system.
Yeah, and, this is, of course, what's going to end up being the Pippin, which a lot of people don't realize because Apple made it more generally available. It was actually Bandai that was initiating all of this, now that we've had some interviews translated from people who were there at the time. Bandai wanted to get in this space, which I don't know that really calling it a computer that they're working on is probably correct. What do you think, Carl?
Well, and yeah, this is the note here. While the press release talks of a PC for children, the financial newspapers immediately hone in on this as a games machine and see it as Apple's way to get into the games market, something they are eyeing as the margins on their normal computer business begin to thin.
Yes. There you go.
And this is the problem. As the PC becomes the machine you bring into the home, that really is impacting Apple's margins. I mean,
sure.
The hardware advantage that Apple machines had for a while is beginning to dwindle rapidly, especially as Super VGA is beginning to take hold. And they need to do something.
Yeah, and they just don't have a management at this point that is up to figuring out what that something should be. But they will try whatever they can, including Apple, to sell Mac OS at retail.
Apple has announced that they will offer Mac OS for users of PowerPC systems using the Common Hardware Reference Platform. This, of course, would open up the market for the OS if CHRP systems already existed. They aren't expected on the market until 1996. Systems that could use it, like Atari STs and Amigas, still can't as they lack Mac ROM chips.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the continuing saga of the other chip and PC companies that have been left out of the Wintel Alliance, trying to put together this Power PC standard and then create a new computing platform standard around it to compete with IBM, which and the compatibles. I mean, it's really competing with Microsoft and Intel at this point, not IBM. That's the intent here, and we will see this continue to not work as we do future jumps, I am sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Apple is just flailing at this point. They've got nothing.
They absolutely are. They Their management doesn't know what they're doing. All the people that do know what they're doing have been chased out by this point, and it's a spiral for sure that most companies would have, quite frankly, never recovered from. But that's for some future jumps.
You mean having a cult following that will continue to buy your machine no matter how bad it gets might actually keep you alive? It's amazing.
Maybe sometimes, but not always, as the Commodore sale is delayed again.
On November 4th, the liquidator of Commodore's assets failed to sign an agreement with the UK Commodore management team. Even if a deal is agreed upon, the Bahamian court supervising the case would then entertain counterbids from other potential buyers, which currently include Creative Equipment International out of Miami. That's basically a bunch of, it's a conglomerate of Amiga distributors. Philips Electronics out of Holland, Amstrad PLC from the UK, and Escom AG of Germany. The delays are worrying for Amiga fans, though, as the crucial Christmas season will be missed, and the rapid advance of competing machines and technologies may make the asset salvaged obsolete.
Yeah, and it's really a pipe dream, obviously. I mean, yes, the Commodore UK was doing better and still had some assets, but nobody involved in actually facilitating the sale is in any way concerned about where or how the Commodore brand continues to promulgate. They are just worried about extracting the maximum amount out of the sale to pay off as many creditors as possible. So, the Commodore UK thing may have been a dream for the little Carls of the world that were not ready to give up their Amigas yet, but it was never realistic as what a bankruptcy court would want to see to satisfy creditors.
Well, and I agree with you. Nothing would have satisfied the creditors. Now,
Yes.
There have been books written since this about this whole episode. The Commodore UK manager has written a book in which David Pleasance claims that the Germans, Escom, who will end up winning this whole bidding war, basically dangled some promises. He claims that they weren't really fulfillable, et cetera, et cetera. Others claim that, the UK deal was contingent on a whole bunch of promises of monies from different places that weren't quite certain. The whole thing is a mess. But yeah, I mean, the last season when you could have gotten rid of the leftover hardware that was still sitting in warehouses was this year. And that's kind of the thing that's going to get missed. A couple of things here. German magazine Amiga Games had two important little tidbits here. One, it was Amiga Joker. They reported that the retail price of an Amiga 1200 in Germany has now jumped from about 600 marks to 900 marks as the inventories are dwindling. So instead of discounting it, the retailers are bumping it up. The few that still were still selling the machines.
Yeah.
Amiga Games magazine, also out of Germany, reports that several prominent Amiga developers, including Attic, makers of Realms of Arcania, Blue Byte, makers of Battle Isle and Amber Moon, and Bullfrog, that got their start with the Amiga, basically, makers of Populous, Syndicate, and Theme Park, have all decided to abandon the Amiga. Which, I mean, it was bound to happen, but it's like everybody is just officially now saying it's done.
For sure. Absolutely. Sorry, Carl. I know it's still too soon to be talking about this, but
I was there for all of this. I remember buying the magazines. This was right around the time when I started buying British magazines. to follow the news because I couldn't get it from any place else. And I was going to be damned if I bought Amiga World magazine because that was not a good magazine. Yeah. What can I say? It was sad. So sad.
So sad. Moving now across the Pacific, Australia funds multimedia development.
The Australian government has announced an $87 million initiative to fund the development of multimedia training in Australia to help the country build up competencies in this area and become a part of the burgeoning multimedia industry. Skills that hopefully will be developed range from the creation of interactive CD film to video game design to user interface development.
Already too late, Australia. Already too late.
Yeah. You got a couple of stories in this vein, but there's a bunch of these initiatives worldwide going on. And this question of, how do we get in on this next big wave and not just cede all the territory to big U.S. producers,
right,
is kind of the thing that's going on here in all this discussion. We've talked about it in previous jumps with the expansion of the web and online content. Canada's trying to deal with this with their whole, if you're broadcasting, a certain percentage has to be Canadian product and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And so, these initiatives now, it's like, okay, in this new era, maybe we can disrupt it. Maybe we can supplant Hollywood. What can we get into it?
Absolutely. And as you said, we do have a second story in this vein as well, as Korea invests in games.
South Korea has announced plans to invest 38 billion won, or $47.5 million, for a, quote, video game industry general development project, end quote, with the intent to promote video games as a pivotal Korean industry. This comes as South Korean industry is investing large sums in expanding their ability to produce semiconductors and flat screen devices.
They basically want to become the next Japan. And spoiler alert, they become the next Japan. But don't tell them they're becoming the next Japan, because the Koreans hate the Japanese. And that is not just me being randomly stereotypical. The Koreans hate the Japanese, and they have good reason to do so.
Yes. They're also not big fans of the Chinese for many, many valid reasons. So they're really on this idea of, we're already taking huge chunks of the hardware business. We've got to get into games. And they will find that, especially with online games.
No, they will. And, they're trying to stay on the cutting edge. I mean, they're investing in flat screen devices right now, which, nobody has a flat screen device. But now, they've come to dominate that market on the low end with companies like Samsung and the high end with companies like LG, which I think is Korean. I hope I was right about that.
Yeah. Wait, no, isn't LG what used to be Matsushita? LG is what used to be Panasonic, formerly known as Lucky Gold Star. No, Gold Star. South Korea. So
they're Korean.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Korean.
Yeah.
I thought they were. I sometimes get in trouble with our DOC when I speak off the cuff. So, and when it comes to games, I mean, I don't think that was necessarily the intent with what they're starting up as a fund here in 1994. But when it comes to games, they end up investing massively in broadband infrastructure before most of the rest of the world does. And then there's heavy investment in online games, and they just completely transform that space. So, I mean, the Koreans are very savvy, and a lot of these things they're starting to fund in the 90s are going to be industries that, as of this recording, they have come to absolutely dominate in a way that the Japanese used to in the 80s and 90s.
Yep. So some of these investments will definitely pay off. Others, not so much.
Absolutely. Speaking of investments, we turn our attention back to the United States, where Looking Glass goes VC.
Ultima Underworld and System Shock maker Looking Glass Technologies Incorporated has received a first round of financing to the tune of $3.8 million from venture capital and private sources to expand product development efforts and accelerate in-house publishing of its immersive reality software products.
Indeed. I'm afraid to say anything about this because our Department of Corrections will nail me to the wall. This is Ethan's area of specialty, Looking Glass.
Yeah. The articles that I found on this, they were talking a lot about really the rising costs of developing the software, but also the desire to get into publishing.
Yeah,
that they no longer want to be published through others.
Yes, and they do indeed start publishing their own games. In 1995. So, Yep.
And yeah.
Oh no, that's all I had.
Oh yeah. The interesting little side note: their upcoming game, Flight Unlimited, they made a VR version of it that they showed off at the European Computer Trade Show. There's even a picture in a German magazine of the setup for this. And it's just kind of weird that I guess they made this maybe in the hopes that all these consumer grade VR headsets that are starting to pop up on the market might catch on. It's also probably something that you would mock up if you really, really wanted to get VCs interested. Show that off to them. I'm sure that somebody will sign a check for that.
Right. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
But while so many countries and companies and everyone else are investing in fancy new VR technology or fancy multimedia, humongous bets on hand-drawn art.
While some publishers see FMV as the future of game graphics and others are betting on pre-rendered 3D, Ron Gilbert's Humongous Entertainment is going another route. Their next children-oriented point-and-click game, Freddy Fish and the Case of the Missing Kelp Seeds, will feature hundreds of hand-drawn animations using high-res graphics and will require Windows 3.1 or higher to run, and will be Windows 95 compatible out of the box, including such cool features as autoplay.
Oh, autoplay.
Oh, yeah. Now, the reason I wanted to really include this is not only because my daughter has been playing the Humongous games, and I helped her play through this one, but the first couple that Humongous released were still using traditional pixel graphics, the first two putt-putt games. This transition basically makes these games not just playable, but absolutely gorgeous to look at even today.
Yeah.
It's a whole different level, and the games are relatively small. I mean, you get fully voiced, fully animated games, fully animated by these standards. 250, 300 megabytes, the whole package. And when you look at the FMV games of the time, it's like you can't even look at the garbled mess of pixels. So it kind of makes you wonder, why weren't more people doing this? Just sad. So sad.
Turning our attention now to the distribution side of the business, Staples stocks games.
Office supply megastore chain Staples has announced that it will begin carrying game software and will be promoting this with a new series of ads emphasizing games like Doom and The Simpsons, according to Discount Store News. That's a trade publication. This follows similar moves by the likes of Office Max and Sam's Club. One of the movers of this seems to be the trend of families purchasing a second home computer.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And I mean, there are so many computers coming into the home now. And they're maybe they're bought for the internet or for children's education or for home office, taking work home kind of deal. But once you have them, you just start to discover some of the other things and you can do with them. A lot of these are coming with bundles, as we talked about, with games. And a lot of this is targeted at a slightly older audience. Games that perhaps adults will enjoy, like Myst or Rebel Assault or whatever, which aren't just strictly kids games, have some bells and whistles. Whether they're good games or not getting into that, just in terms of the enticement. And so I think that these kinds of stores are discovering that their typical clientele are going to be interested in these as well, as they're coming in and picking up bits and bobs for their PCs or picking up new PCs. And, I just wanted to say as well, we talked about this a little bit, but this right here is a big part of what transforms, not for the better, the state of the computer game publisher in the United States. I just recently talked to the former CFO of Interplay, Chuck Camp, and he talked to me about how when companies like Sam's Club and these office megastores started getting into computer games, it was actually a huge problem for mid-tier publishers because they would make humongous orders and they would have no patience for the stock moving, and they would demand an absolute right of return as part of getting those huge orders. So you would have to mass produce all of this software. You'd have to go through all of that cost to get the big order. And then there was a good chance you were going to end up getting a lot of it back. And so you needed to have a larger market capitalization and a larger revenue stream to be able to handle those shocks. But you couldn't just stay home and not play at all, because the games that were going into the mass market, bigger box retailers, were the games that the public was going to be aware of, the companies that the public were going to be aware of. And so that really caught these companies in a catch-22, where companies like Interplay were literally not big enough anymore to survive in the industry because they didn't have the revenue streams to deal with this large order, large return cycle. So just a really fascinating thing that I got to learn about recently, talking with another industry insider.
And I mean, that makes perfect sense, which also kind of makes you wonder what Looking Glass was thinking about trying to get into publishing at this point.
It was a bad time.
Well, and I mean, it also makes sense. I mean, you've got an office store like Staples putting out an ad, probably in the newspaper, saying, "Hey, we've got Doom," and they have no way of knowing how many people that ad will actually attract into the store. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they'd be ordering a ton of stuff as long as they know that they can send it back. It's low risk, high reward for them, but the publisher doesn't know what to do with that product afterwards.
Exactly. And, and they were lured by the dollar signs. And, it was right in this period here, not necessarily this year, but 94, 95, somewhere in there, and maybe 96, that Chuck Camp was starting to tell Brian Fargo, "You are not big enough to be in this business anymore. We should get out." And it was only several years later, when they started having financial problems, that they did get out. But those problems stemmed from trying to deal with the situation here. Selling to a Walmart or a Sam's Club or an office big box store was completely different from selling to a Babbage's or a Software, etc., which specifically dealt in that business, didn't have as much ability to leverage those kind of terms on the back of large orders, and because their primary business was stocking these games, were willing to let them stay on the shelf a while longer to move through the channel.
Yeah. Yeah. And also they had the advantage that the more variety of games that they had on the shelf, the more attractive the store looked.
Exactly.
Whereas Staples, I remember going into stores like Staples and Office Max around this time. And I mean, yeah, they'd have a couple of racks of games, but it was just a handful of titles. It was very, very generic stuff. for the most part. And yeah.
Yeah. And,
oh, well.
I don't know that the office stores were as big a problem as the Walmarts of the world were, but this was a huge shift in who was stocking PC software. And it's basically what brought down the U.S. PC games industry. Obviously, the industry didn't completely vanish, but you went from having a dozen or more viable publishers putting out games to consolidating down to like a mere handful, half of which were owned by the French.
Yeah, crazy.
Indeed. More on that as it develops. Meanwhile, Amstrad targets direct market.
Alan Sugar's Amstrad Group out of the UK will launch a £6 million ad campaign promoting a new direct sales operation. This is a direct response to the ever more competitive market for PCs in the UK, with IBM, Compaq, and other heavyweights filling up high street retailers and launching massive TV ad campaigns.
Yeah, so they're basically trying to go the Dell route. I mean, that's how Dell competed against everybody, is those direct sales.
Yeah. The only difference is there's not going to be any customization.
Right.
And it's how do you be the cheap impulse buy brand if you're not in the stores?
Indeed. But I mean, there's so many companies now that are flooding the PC market with those cheap impulse buy PCs. This is just, those East Asian clones are reshaping the entire PC industry in the early 1990s. And this is just another example of that, just seeing it playing out in the UK instead of where we normally covered playing out in the United States.
Exactly.
And speaking of IBM moves to online software distribution.
IBM has teamed up with Hughes Network Systems to offer corporate clients the ability to order and download system software via a high-speed satellite link. This promises to deliver updates and emergency fixes almost instantly as opposed to via physical media. The 12 megabit per second connection will use a 24-inch direct PC satellite dish. This system will allow for a more customized approach to software delivery. Independent analyst Anura Guruj told Network World magazine, quote, "The days of distributing software one product at a time on tape are dead," end quote. The setup will cost $1,500 with a $16 a month fee.
Yeah, I mean, this makes sense as a place where something akin to digital distribution would be starting, where corporate customers, if there's a vulnerability, they need fixes now. Obviously, this is how the updating of all OSs and critical software works today. But it's interesting to see kind of near the beginning of this here. I'm sure not the very first, but a very early approach to doing that here from IBM. Oh,
definitely. And the interesting thing here, the example you just gave about critical patches and security updates is the big example they talk about in the article.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do is be waiting for those to show up. This is just, real quick. Hey, we've got a vulnerability. Boom. As soon as it's there, it's installed. And it does, they can do the testing on this kind of system here because these are the systems that are already online, which will then become, like you said, vital to modern home computing.
Indeed. But IBM is not stopping there, Carl, as IBM introduces multi-level disk.
IBM has developed a method for allowing multi-level disks. The disk consists of a stack of surfaces and multiplies the amount of data that can be stored on it. Moving the optical disk drive's focusing lens up and down selects the surface on which data is read or written. Movable lenses already exist in today's optical disk drives to maintain focus, even on warped disks. Each surface is clear, unlike today's compact discs and other optical discs, which have a reflective backing film. An increase in capacity of up to 6.5 gigabytes on a regular CD-sized disk would be possible with the new system. Such disks would also accommodate future advances such as the use of blue lasers.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, this is the technology that will allow for the creation of the DVD and the Blu-ray disc as we know it today.
Absolutely. Big technology breakthrough there.
Oh, yeah. And it's kind of cool. I mean, they got the size capacity already properly estimated at this point, which I thought was kind of cool. You know, the 6.5 gigabytes being thrown around is like, okay, they got that right.
They sure did. All right, turning now to the ever-increasing section on online news. We start with AT&T buys Imagination Network.
American telecommunications giant AT&T has announced that they will be purchasing the 80% of Sierra Online's Imagination Network that they have not yet purchased for $40 million. This comes a week after Microsoft's announcement that they will be launching their own online portal initiative.
Yeah, I mean, this is not too surprising. It's become a black hole for Sierra, which can't really support it. And it's basically a single T1 line running into the mountains to a group of networked PCs masquerading as a network. It's wild that it even works, but it's way too much for Sierra to keep maintaining. This is the period where the World Wide Web's getting big and everyone thinks that they need a portal. And this is looking to AT&T like maybe it will be their portal.
Exactly. And I can't emphasize this enough. This idea that Microsoft has announced that they're going to do something. Nobody's quite sure what that means, but it gets mentioned over and over and over again all over the articles this month. There's also a quote about how online service revenue in the U.S. in 1993 was $558 million, and it's expected to rise to $708 million in 1994. And obviously, we're going to see that number just explode over the next couple of years.
For sure. Meanwhile, in console online news, the XBAND launches.
November 17th saw the limited launch of the XBAND modem in Atlanta, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Dallas. The $70 modem and $8 a month connection fee will let kids have up to 32 plays a month against similarly skilled kids or specific players. Additional plays will cost 15 cents each. Catapult Entertainment, makers of the modem, say that they did not go with a nationwide rollout because they couldn't produce enough units of the hardware. THQ is the exclusive distributor of the XBAND and is spending between $2 and $3 million on promoting the device. So, I mean, we talked about the XBAND in previous episodes. This limited launch, if what they're saying is true, that they couldn't get more hardware out there, that it would not surprise me. Also, the fact that the market is in sort of a down moment and that this is really for the previous generation of hardware. I don't know how much that played a role. But the idea that you only got 32 plays, and I don't know what they define as a play. I mean, you get killed in Mortal Kombat and that's one of the plays, or is it, one session where you have a continuous connection with the person? I have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Indeed. But they are, of course, not the only console solution that's starting to filter out there, as Sega Channel to get nationwide rollout.
Sega has reported that after successful results in their test markets, they will be rolling the service out across the USA in December. They will expand from their current 12 test markets to a network of cable operators that will cover 20 million cable subscribers, representing 50% of the total market. Just not for very long.
Yes, moving along.
Yeah. Now, do have to mention, we mentioned this already in the last 30 plus year jump, that they were starting to already cut deals for the UK. There's also talk of potentially launching it in Japan, which obviously would be a pipe dream given the limited number of installed units. But yeah, I mean, they're pinning a lot of hopes on this at this point.
They are, but wait, there's more, Carl, as Jaguar to go online.
Time Warner has announced that its full-service network will offer Atari Jaguar games on demand. And that's pretty much the entire line. That's all I could find on this.
Yeah. Well, I believe at this point, Time Warner still has their minority share in Atari. They always kept a little bit in case things would get big again. And so I think that's why Time Warner specifically going through Jaguar on this, is because they still have a minority stake in Jack Trammell's Atari Corporation.
Yeah, that and everybody else is talking about online. So this was probably a very quick and easy way to get a press release out and test the waters.
Indeed. And not only is Sega going into cable, but Sega goes online.
Sega of America has announced that it will be going online with a Sega forum on CompuServe, which will host chats with Sega insiders, including friend of the show, Roger Hector, an FTP server through which fans will be able to download text, audio, and image files, and a World Wide Web, or WWW, homepage that will launch on November 7th.
My birthday. So yes, in this case, they are trying to figure out what it looks like to start marketing themselves on the World Wide Web, as opposed to just the pure distributing of game content over cable or the World Wide Web or whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, and this is similar to some of the stuff they were doing that Nintendo was doing for Donkey Kong, but the impact and the ability to use the web for those kind of marketing things is becoming more and more apparent. One example that was given in another article was that the website for Star Trek Generations, the new movie that's released this month, got over 17,000 hits in a week and a half, and the online shop for the site got 3,600 orders for merch. Because those people are so proud to be wearing that Generations hat nowadays.
Oh boy. Oh boy. And turning our attention to the wider World Wide Web infrastructure, a big name change news as Mosaic Communications changes name to Netscape.
Netscape will continue to develop a commercial version of the Mosaic browser originally developed at the University of Illinois and which has been distributed for free for years online. The name change is to allay concerns expressed by the university.
And Netscape was my first web browser.
First one I had on my computer was Netscape. First one I used though was Mosaic, on a Unix terminal. So yeah, back before there were background colors or background graphics, everything was gray with text.
Goody. And meanwhile, as the space continues to heat up, AOL goes shopping.
America Online announced the purchase of two companies, BookLink Technologies, the maker of a web browser, and Navisoft, a provider of web hosting servers and software. Navisoft chairman and CEO David Cole will become president of AOL's Internet Services Company, a post held by AOL president CEO Steve Case.
Starting to consolidate all of the areas around what people do on the World Wide Web.
Yep. It's basically, it's the acknowledgement we have to be on the web. We need to have a web browser. We need to remain relevant.
Absolutely. And speaking of CUC, which I'm sorry can be pronounced cuck, I'm not the one that chose that acronym for the company. CUC buys NetMarket.
CUC International, a company specializing in over-the-phone direct-to-consumer sales, has acquired NetMarket Company, a New Hampshire-based internet transaction service company, for less than $1 million. This should allow CUC to introduce an online version of their Shopper's Advantage service using secure transactions in early 1995.
I just did a podcast episode not too long ago about all of this, so I can actually speak intelligently about it. NetMarket was actually, at least so they say, the very first company that ever facilitated a secured transaction over the internet. Like they're the very, very first online shopping through a secure through security. Blah, blah, blah. The very first online purchase via secure transaction was facilitated by NetMarket. CUC and their CEO, Walter Forbes, has for decades, probably not as long as he BS'd to the media when he was building his image, but legitimately for decades had been obsessed with the idea that online shopping was going to be a future. And the company had actually tried really hard in the early 80s, when they were still called CompuCard, which is what CUC is short for. They tried really hard to make online shopping through existing networks of the time, like CompuServe and the like, a thing. And it just never caught on because there were just not enough users. It was their traditional phone business is what continued to make them money. And so now that the World Wide Web is coming, CUC is going to try really hard again to create this idea of online shopping where they cut out the middleman, and it's almost like an Amazon Marketplace kind of thing, so to speak, just cutting out the middleman, ordering direct from companies. So, I mean, even Amazon Marketplace is mostly retailers, I suppose. So it's even more direct than Amazon Marketplace. But the point is, they link people up directly with the makers of goods and get them wholesale prices, cutting out the retail middleman. And then they just take a very small cut. So there's still a slight markup over wholesale, but not as much as you'd get from a retailer. That's their core business. They do it over the phone. But what they really want to do is do it over the World Wide Web.
And I'm sure that it will be so well managed that it works out great.
CUC's a great company, Carl. If you were to look at this time, if we were to take the time machine back, you would see that they just beat earnings every quarter like clockwork. Great investment. Yeah. Always just beating earnings. How many companies can say that? Not many, Carl, which clearly shows how good they are at their business.
Yeah. I miss the days when CEOs actually lied about how bad their companies were doing in order to get good results on the stock market, as opposed to simply losing billions and billions of dollars every year and becoming the most valued company on the planet.
Indeed. Different time.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in further online company funding news, Paul Allen invests in CNET.
Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen's Vulcan Ventures Incorporated has invested in the San Francisco-based CNET, the computer network, which will provide consumer-oriented information about computers, video games, and interactive media. Allen said that the company can respond to a quote, incredible thirst among consumers for information about evolving technology, digital convergence, and how it will affect them individually, end quote.
Yeah, I mean, probably a good bet. I mean, obviously CNET still exists today, even if it's a shell of its former self. I haven't followed it closely, but I imagine it did. I mean, I'm assuming its heyday, it did very well. It certainly was everywhere because you did have an explosion of new technologies and software platforms and applications that everyone needed to be part of this new connected age, and that most consumers were not in the least bit savvy about. And CNET became a gold standard, one that I in the past have relied on from time to time, not recently, but back in like the early mid 2000s. Became a gold standard for providing trustworthy, reliable information on how good products actually were at doing what they claimed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, CNET was one of my go-tos. It had so many subsections on every kind of topic. Anytime I needed to buy a new piece of hardware, always just that was my go-to. And then for a while there, they also did television shows. I remember Sci-Fi Channel. It was like Sunday mornings. They had like a 5-hour block with, shows just about new websites to visit and all sorts of stuff like this. It was a juggernaut. And it really gave a good taste of how that minute by minute updated information could really make a difference, especially in these fast moving fields.
Absolutely. And finally, we wrap up this portion of the show as Bill Gates touts information future at Comdex.
Bill Gates took his hour-long keynote at Comdex to talk about how technology was going to get smaller, more connected, and that the future of the year 2005 would be one of information at your fingertips.
I mean, pretty good job there, Bill. I mean, there's obviously a lot of ways that you could, define something that vague, but I would say the coming of the smartphone in 2007, just 2 years later, really fulfilled this idea.
Have you ever seen this keynote?
I have not, actually.
Oh, a link is in the show notes. The whole thing. It's literally him watching essentially a cop procedural in Seattle, where everything sort of in the background, they're interacting with this technology. So he's got somebody with a PDA like device, basically looks like a smartphone, using it to buy their latte. They get into their car, they do a video call with their chief who tells them, that there's been a murder, sends them initial pictures from the location. They use the same tablet that they're talking to the person through is also then the GPS navigation system to get there. It's fascinating. It's like basically our world. I mean, there's a few technical differences here and there, but for the most part, he hits it on the head. Well, each time.
And, the iPhone 2007, I mean, obviously, couldn't do everything that it can do today, but I mean, he was in the ballpark even of the right time, because that's always the hard part, right? I mean, a lot of these people, we've seen it again and again in these jumps. They're making predictions about the future that are absolutely true, but their timing is so badly off.
Yeah.
Whereas here, Bill Gates has the timing just about right.
Yeah, and he actually does mention, a year more or two less or more, but
there you go.
It's also a little corny because if there's certain moments when the characters on the screen will talk to him and he'll talk back to them and stuff. But it's definitely a video worth watching, especially now with this much space between them then and now.
Absolutely. Turning our attention to a little bit of print publishing news, Pearson buys Future.
Future Publishing Limited, the UK publisher of such magazines as Sega Power, Games Master Amiga Format, Edge, and the all-powerful Amiga Power, has agreed to be purchased by media giant Pearson and will become part of Pearson New Entertainment Europe. According to PNE head Nick Alexander, they will start with print publications but will expand into CD-ROM and online. Future founder Chris Anderson will leave the company to develop his publishing interests in North America.
The only thing I really have to add here is a reminder that Pearson is getting into this digital space in all sorts of ways at this time. They had bought Mindscape, SSI, all of that. And, we're getting into the computer game space as well, not just into the publishing of computer game magazines.
Yeah. And we also should also mention that Chris Anderson is going to basically use this money to start the TED Talk concept, as well as many other ventures.
Indeed. Then our other piece of print publishing news, we have Street Fighter, the RPG.
White Wolf Game Studio has released Street Fighter, the Storytelling Game, a pen and paper RPG based around the Capcom fighting game series.
What's next? Street Fighter, the toilet paper?
Street Fighter, the Flamethrower.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but it just feels like we talked about it early in the episode, so it just seems appropriate. This is really an example of how Street Fighter is just oversaturating its market. There are video games that would make good pen and paper RPGs. Street Fighter is not one of them. It's just not.
Yeah. Then again, Street Fighter was also not something that was going to make a good pinball game. Did that stop them? No. Did
Capcom nearly go bankrupt? Yes.
There you go. I still remember seeing this in the store.
Wow. And I don't think I ever saw it.
Yeah, no, I saw it in the store and I was just like, what the hell? And I wasn't even a pen and paper guy back then, but still I was just like, well, how would this even work? But yeah, it's a thing that exists. So
indeed.
More power to them.
Right. Turning our attention then now to legal news, fighter history suit settled.
According to the Japan Economic Newswire, Capcom and Data East have settled their copyright dispute over Data East's similarities with Capcom's Street Fighter II game out of court. The suit, brought against both Data East's Japanese parent company and U.S. subsidiary, had sought 630 million yen in damages. The terms of the settlement were unknown, but Capcom said the settlement was reached in response to advice from the Tokyo District Court, which said it would be difficult to determine a violation of copyrights under existing law.
This one, of course, is just always so funny, just from an irony sense, because Data East was, of course, the company that sued in the landmark U.S. case against International Karate with Epix, because they were mad that that game was so much like their own Karate Champ. And now they are the company pumping out the Street Fighter clone. They have become that which they abhorred.
Hey, if it's not illegal to do it, then why not?
Exactly. Meanwhile, Nintendo wins again.
Nintendo beat another patent case, this time again concerning their lockout chip technology. The case brought by Michael Rackman over his patent for a public key cryptography patent was dismissed by a New York judge. And the gloating in Nintendo's press release.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They just kept going on about all the cases that they've already won this year and how they are, all these people trying to meddle with their success. And oh my God, it's really kind of painful to read. But yeah. What can I say? It wasn't public key cryptography, therefore, just let it be, let it be.
That's right. Next up on the regulatory front, GATT changes coming.
The General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT, an international treaty to standardize global trade, is beginning to be implemented, and this is leading to a variety of changes in how intellectual property is to be treated. In Australia, a new law has been proposed that would ban the rental of computer games and compact discs without the copyright holder's permission, as under GATT, the right to allow rentals would belong exclusively to the copyright holders. So-called CD rental libraries and video stores would not be allowed to add to their libraries after the end of 1995. GATT is also being promoted by California Republican member of the House Stephen Horn as a way to extend protection for the American software industry to countries where copyright protections have historically been hard, if not impossible, to enforce. GATT passed the House on November 29th, 288 to 146.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the GATT thing, it covers basically everything imaginable. And I don't want to go, I did a bit of a deep dive onto the history of GATT because I remember it being in the press at the time. But specifically for our purposes, the standardization of copyright is one of the big deals because a lot of places allow for the commercial rental of copyrighted material, something that, for example, in the United States is okay for a library to do as long as they're not charging for it. But otherwise, you got to get the VHS or the DVD that has the, this copy is not for resale. It's only for rental purposes where you pay the extra fees. Mm-hmm. And obviously, especially when we get to DVDs, that's going to be a big market. But the fact that in Australia, this appears to have been a big deal for software, which is so easily copied usually, that kind of surprised me a little bit.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And speaking of the U.S. upping its enforcement of copyright, U.S. government to fund software protection efforts in China.
The Atlanta Journal and Constitution reports that the U.S. Information Technology Office will be creating a branch office in Beijing to help promote the adoption of legal software in the country and will advocate for stricter copyright protections. The office will be funded through a $420,000 grant, which will be matched by contributions from 3 trade associations, the American Electronics Association, the Telecommunications Industry Association, and the Software Publishers Association. Ken Wash, director of the SPA, said, quote, "Before American software companies can tap China's huge potential, Chinese computer users must understand the benefits of purchasing legal software." End quote. The Chinese purchased over $3 billion worth of computers and electronic hardware in 1993, and the U.S. government expects that amount to increase by 42% by the end of 1995.
Carl, I'm going to be honest with you. I live in the U.S. of A., and I'm not sure that I understand the benefits of purchasing legal software. I do it, but I'm not sure what benefits I, as the consumer, get for doing that over pirating. And don't say tech support. Not enough.
Well, you get the benefit of the producer continuously making the software better. There you don't throw in extra ads or turn it into freemium nonsense after you paid full price for it. They would never do that to you. And you own it. You own it. You don't have to deal with it being a subscription that could get shut off at any moment.
Then why do all the games I purchased have licensing agreements, Carl? I just think it's funny the way, but in all joking aside, I just think it's funny that he puts it that way, the benefits of purchasing legal software, as if they're doing the consumer a favor. I mean, look, I understand companies need to make money on what they make. I mean, I'm not turning this into a complete anti-capitalism rant. I just think that is such a ridiculous way to put it. Like the consumer benefits. No, your member companies benefit, Mr. Wash.
Exactly.
But he does have a point about the difficulties here as cybercrime booming.
Newsweek has an article about the growing wave of internet-based software piracy spreading around the web. The prime example given is a case where hackers hijacked part of a Florida State University server over a weekend and used it to distribute everything from games to beta versions of the upcoming Windows 95 and OS 2. They also discuss cases of telephone credit card number thefts and resales, which often go to pay for hackers' online access. Some estimates place internet-based software piracy costs to the industry last year at over $2 billion.
I find that number hard to believe at this early date. I mean, obviously, piracy costs companies money. Always has, always will. Companies also tend to try to over-report the effects of that as part of their lobbying to get more protection. It's hard for me to believe that in the very early days of the World Wide Web that there was already $2 billion worth of software piracy going on. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'm naive.
Yeah, 2 billion seems a little high, but what I thought was quite interesting, not only because I'm an alum of Florida State University, but this idea that they're hijacking university servers.
Right.
I'm not saying that I ever downloaded anything from a hijacked university server.
Of course not.
But I do somehow recall in the 90s that if you knew the right forums to look in, you could find the addresses of specific servers that had been taken over as FTP servers. And for about a week, sometimes less, there'd be all sorts of stuff going through there. So once you're on one of these servers that has a fast connection, that would be a big deal. Now, the interesting thing that that this administrator who they interviewed, the FSU system admin, said that the reason that they noticed the activity wasn't because of the spike in volume of activity as far as data transfers, but what really caught him was simply that so many of the IP addresses were outside of the United States. They were getting hit from every corner of the planet suddenly.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that got him, because they would log in once and you would never see that IP address again afterwards.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's what tipped him off that something was wrong. And so I thought that, so this 2 billion, once you start figuring out that there's people all over the planet doing it, especially since a lot of these countries at this point don't really have this on their radar. So there's probably a lot of phone freaking going on. That may also be a combination effect. Sure,
but I wonder how many of those around the world people would have actually bought the software, because that's the part of the trick when you're estimating the cost of software piracy. You can't just go by an estimate of how many pirated copies are out there, because that assumes that all of those people would have bought the software if they couldn't get it for free.
I completely agree that that's a bogus. Yeah. And one of my upcoming interviews with a gentleman who was largely responsible for illegal software distribution in Argentina, one of the methods that they were using already back in the 80s was through phone freaking and BBSs to get the stuff down there. I mean, if you then extrapolate, okay, the original copy came via telecommunications networks, and then extrapolate all the copies that came off of that, then you get to the 2 billion number in no time, especially if you're thinking about as operating systems. I mean, if you're going with the highest value of the Windows 95 operating system at the time, which would have been hundreds of dollars, multiply that a few times. Yeah, it goes fast.
No, I get all of that. Yeah. I'm just saying, I bet a large portion of those pirators would not have purchased the software which is where the numbers start to get dodgy, because you can't just say, this guy, Phone Freak got a copy and then distributed it to all of his friends and neighbors, and that's X amount of money. But it's like, how many of those friends and neighbors could have afforded, had access, et cetera, to that software without that? So
it's nowhere near a realistic number. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
But it adds up. I also agree with you that it adds up. And we end our legal news this month with a story that is sadly as relevant today as it was 30 years ago, as hate moves online.
The European Jewish Congress has released a report claiming that right-wing hate groups have begun moving online to distribute their materials, bypassing traditional police controls. The use of e-zines and video games has begun to spread. Dutch police have even confiscated 10,000 discs containing racist video games. I'm sure that the open architecture of the internet will be given the necessary guardrails to rein in such dangerous forces, though. Yeah.
Feels like a Watchmen thing. In 1994, right-wing hate groups have begun moving online. It is now 2015.
and there's a UFC.
Have begun moving online.
There's a UFC ring in front of the White House. Jesus Christ. They go into a whole bunch of different examples. But yeah, it's very clear that the ability to target people very specifically on the web, and we've talked about this in a few of the 30-year jumps, that there's a lot of commentaries already about the potential danger of people living in information bubbles via online networks is already very, very clear to anybody paying attention. And yeah, it's just going to take 30 years to really have to seep through the entire system all the way to the top, sadly.
Indeed.
Oh, well.
All right, that does it for legal news. Moving on, as we always do, to a few random odds and ends before we wrap up here. Cybermania 94 Awards.
On November 5th, the first annual Cybermania Awards celebrating the best of interactive entertainment were held at Universal Studios Hollywood and broadcast live on TBS Superstation.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is basically... yeah, this thing just needs to be seen to be believed. Have you ever watched the Cybermania Awards?
I have not, though a little bird tells me I'm due to do this thing very soon.
We will be hooking up with our good friend Guillermo Crespi to do a audio commentary / basically, let's laugh at this horrible thing. Commentary that will be going up on the YouTube channel shortly to celebrate this. He sent this to me years ago already and was like, dude, we got to do this. And so we definitely will do this. I mean, it's got Leslie Nielsen co-hosting. Come on. It can't be all that bad. It is. I've watched about half of it. Oh my God. But yes, so this will be fun. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Now we turn to a rather humorous story in light of the modern world as Lego rewards video game resistance.
Danish toy maker Lego has awarded its annual 1 million krona award for resisting video game and computer culture to a German theater company and Austrian children's book author. They have revived, quote, the magic world of the theater and the story in an age of video and computers, which transforms adults and children into passive operators and slaves, end quote, the company said.
Meanwhile, here in 2026, a few weeks ago at the time of this recording, I purchased Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight and have been enjoying it.
Yeah, you mean the one with the Lego characters recreating the most violent Batman movies? Is that the one?
That's the one. Obviously, Lego is all in on the video games now because there is money to be had.
Yes, this was also the period when Lego wasn't quite completely collapsing yet, but Bionicle has not pulled their bacon out of the oven just yet. So, yeah, when I read this, I was just like, oh, glass houses. You guys are throwing stones. You're going to be living in a glass house soon.
Though I believe the term is bacon out of the fire, Carl. If you are cooking your bacon in the oven, you are an absolute monster.
Unless, of course, you've wrapped it around a hot dog.
Well, anyway, in another kind of light entertainment piece here, CNN visits Britannia Manor.
CNN ran a segment highlighting Richard Garriott's famous Britannia Manor haunted house. Unbeknownst to them or Garriott, it would be the final year that he would do the public event.
Yeah, that sounds like they were very elaborate. I mean, he's often talked about them, written about them, etc. Seems like they were pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, tons of actors. I mean, the setup took forever. I mean, I've seen lots of pictures about it and read multiple reports over the years. It's one of those things where it's like, man, if I had a time machine, there's so many great moments in history. Okay, Hitler survives, but I get to go to Britannia Manor, bitch.
Indeed. And another profile running this month, there was an internet cafe profiled.
The London-based The Sunday Times has a cool profile of Siberia, an early internet cafe in London. A long wall decked out with screens lets people send email, surf the web, chat with others, etc., all while drinking a hot mug of Joe. And, I mean, I'm sure that it's not the first internet cafe,
sure.
But these are going to become ubiquitous throughout Europe very, very quickly. It's shortly after this. It's sometime in early 1995. I'm going to start going to an internet cafe in Seattle called Speakeasy. If you've ever heard of speakeasy.org, I mean, they basically had their own web hosting service and stuff for years. It was a beautiful old brownstone building. Quite often they'd have like blues musicians playing in there and these amber Unix terminals everywhere. You could just log on and do stuff. Absolutely amazing atmosphere. Fortunately, they had a fire in like the 2005, 2006, but by then it was almost dead anyway because, you know, what was the point of an internet cafe by then? But
sure. At least in the United States. In the developing world, they continued to be a major source of game playing, even at that
they still
juncture.
are in some places.
And still are.
Yeah.
But yes, in the United States, definitely by 2005, dead, as everyone already had their own personal broadband connections.
Exactly.
Speaking of technology expanding in new directions, VR goes dental.
Patterson Dental, a dental supply company, has begun marketing Virtual IO's virtual glasses to dental practices. The non-tracking goggles allow for the playing of video games or movies to help distract the estimated 25 to 40 million Americans who are dental phobics, aka people who are afraid of the dentist. The device will cost a dentist $699.
This is a bad idea. This is a horribly bad idea. I'm sorry, but when people, even if it's just watching movies, even if it's not playing games, people sometimes make involuntary expressions when they are engaging in media. This is not safe, Carl. This is a malpractice lawsuit waiting to happen.
Wait, you mean somebody who is afraid of the dentist, who's watching something and then suddenly hears a noise from the outside that sounds like, I can't see how that will go wrong.
Oh my God.
Or even better, it's like, you know, the dentist is trying to talk to them, like, you know, I need you to move your tongue to the side, and they're in the middle of listening to something. Yeah, this whole thing is a disaster waiting to happen.
And here I was thinking the Jaguar VR headset was the worst idea in VR history. I stand corrected. But moving on to a piece of technology that might find a little more success in the marketplace, Casio debuts digital camera.
Casio has debuted the first still camera with an LCD display that allows users to see the images they've taken and stores up to 96 images on a computer chip system that can then be downloaded to a computer or to a video recorder. So, yeah, I mean, this is basically the beginning of the digital still camera fad. This is where it starts. We're going to see some versions of this later on with floppy disks in it. We're going to see some that, use custom memory sticks. Sony will do this with their memory stick tech. But, this is where cameras completely changed. The idea of, well, I hope the picture turned out, is a thing of the past.
Absolutely. Finally, we will end this episode's headlines as we sometimes do with an RIP. But while this is often for a game company of some kind, this is actually a real RIP for an actual person, as William Alfred Higginbotham has passed.
On November 10th, 1994, physicist and computer pioneer William A. Higginbotham passed away at the age of 84. While he achieved a lot in life, including working on the electronic components for the first atomic bomb, he is important for us for being the man behind the Tennis for Two demo shown at a public demonstration at the Brookhaven National Laboratory in 1958. Quote, "It took me about 2 hours to rough out the design and a couple of weeks to get it debugged and working," he said in an interview in 1983. "It didn't take long, and it was a big hit."
Yeah, it's in a way a landmark moment. I mean, it's not an influential moment, but it is a landmark moment. This demo of his, which historians have retroactively called Tennis for Two, it didn't have that name.
Yeah.
At the actual demonstration, but we call it that now for ease of identification. It may well have been, and I mean, this is a hair-splitting thing. It's not important. It may well have been the first video game that was purely put together just for people to have a good time at an event. Like, there'd been other games, including real-time games, that had been demoed publicly before, and obviously they were always meant for someone to have a good time, but they were also meant to show off the power of a computer or show off the future of thinking machines, that kind of thing. Whereas this one, near as I can tell, it wasn't showing off any particular technology or research or anything that was going on at the lab. It's just they had a computer capable of doing this, and it seemed like it could be fun. And it didn't influence anybody because it was played by so few people, but its memory was kept alive because David All, who we've talked about not that long ago and in many other jumps in regard to creative computing and other things, was actually at one of those visitor days. And so in 1982, actually sent one of his authors one of his writers at the magazine based on that memory out to Brookhaven, where Higginbotham still worked at that time, to interview him about the game, which is what's kept it alive in popular memory, even though it was not a direct influence on the creation of the industry. So a giant in the field of nuclear non-proliferation, which is his proudest achievement that he most wanted to be remembered for, but also an early pioneer in this wild and wacky video game industry.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better myself. And so that ends our headlines for this episode, which just leaves two matters. One will be the word of the episode, which we will get to toot sweet. But first, we need the quotes, the best quote of the month. And this month, well, we have a slew of them because this month saw the release of Double Dragon, the movie, which, Alex, you famously still have not seen. I have not made it all the way through, so I believe at some point we will have to do a watch party for this one as well.
Oh, God.
But let's hear now from some of the experts. So this is the movie review published in the Ottawa Citizen. But it's using Michael Price, the reviewer from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Quote, actors who should never be allowed speaking roles, Mark Dacascos and Scott Wolf and Alyssa Milano, share the screen with good actors who should know better, Terminator 2's Robert Patrick, Sidekicks Julia Nixon. The result is a muddle of incoherence that not even Patrick's flair for villainous wit can penetrate.
Man, have Charmed fans burned down his house? Because, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with his criticism of the movie, but wow, he went harsh on Alyssa Milano.
I completely concur. I mean, I don't, granted, I've seen her part of the movie and it is bad.
I'm sure it is.
But,
I mean, I'm sure he's accurate to this particular piece of work, but
well, I mean, at this point in time, I don't even think she's done the vampire movie yet.
Right.
So, it's basically she's coming off of Who's the Boss?
Yeah.
Now, here's another one, and this is from David Elliott in the San Diego Union Tribune. If Ed Wood had become old and senile enough to make Brat Pack movies, the terminal result could have been something like Double Dragon. I am pleased to give it my first double dog rating. Of course, Ed could have pumped in more idiotic intensity and would have outtoured it. And here, let's just do one more from USA Today. With a cast ripped from TV Guide, Mark Dacascos of The Flash and Scott Wolf of Party of Five, Christina Malandro of General Hospital, and Alyssa Milano of Who's the Boss, Dragon is like a Pee Wee Herman yard sale hosted by Bruce Lee.
Wow.
Yeah. These are pretty bad. And
I love it when critics talk dirty to me.
And this is the one that probably aged the worst. From the St. Petersburg Times. If this is the best filmmakers can do with the video game market, we'll sit the rest out until the planned film version of Doom. About
dear.
that.
Delightful.
Okay, so I just need to get those quotes out. The first week, basically, of the month, I had to go through so many Double Dragon reviews. It was scary.
Admit it, you enjoyed it. You enjoyed finding those quotes, Carl.
It was kind of fun. I will grant you that. Yes. Okay, so with that being said, good sir, what is the quote of the word of the episode?
Well, Carl, I think the word or phrase, as I often do of the episode, is pretty clear this time around, and that is market glut. Whether it's the console industry being inundated by way too many games, the PC market being inundated by way too many clones, the VR market being inundated with way too many solutions, and the online market being inundated with too many possibilities. There are just way too many people trying way too many things this month, and it cannot go well for all of them.
Amen. And I'm sure that we will cover all of that fallout as it becomes news. Alex, remind everybody where they can find your fine work.
As always, they can find me at theycreateworlds.com, which has recently undergone a complete redesign that me and my podcast co-host Jeffrey are very pleased with, making it easier to search, easier to read, easier to find stuff on. So do check that out. The podcast twice a month, every month, without fail, somehow since September 2015, still has never missed an episode. And there's information about the book there as well. I'm supposed to have another one of those one of these days. We don't talk about that.
Excellent. And remember, everybody, we've got a Patreon. It's $1 a month, or maybe two. I think I've upped it to two just because, yeah. And if you do like us, follow us on YouTube. Even if you don't watch us on YouTube, help the algorithm out. Leave some comments. I'd love to hear from you, and not just, people, angry anti-Amico people dropping comments. I don't mind reading those either, but still. And other than that, have fun. The Alliance is supposed to provide Baby Bells with an alternative supplier of next-generation telecommunications infrastructure hardware, as the only large-scale provider at the moment is AT&T, which, for example, now with whom? It's supposed to be with whom?
Yeah, but it could also be which. After all, corporations are not people, Carl, despite what the Supreme Court might have you believe.
Yeah, but it's still with which?
Yeah.
Then it would be with which.
Yeah, with whom sounds better, in my opinion, even if corporations aren't people.
Fuck you, Supreme Court. Okay, one more time.